Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the first installment of Dark Side, Light Side, a primarily show about what's that little sci-fi show that's right, it's called Star Wars. With myself, I am, of course, one of your hosts. My name is John Campea. Thank you guys so much for being here. And, of course, the real draw here. The real draw. I'm joined by Kristian Harloff, ladies and gentlemen. Kristian, how you doing?
And I'm Mark Ellis. No? I guess not. Good, John. I'm happy to be here. Excited. I'm really looking forward to arguing with you about Star Wars. No, I'm kidding. Actually, having a great conversation with you. I think the other day when you and I went to see Terminator, and we just started kind of shooting the S back and forth, and we realized at the end of the conversation, like, this is literally a conversation that we could have on the air about Star Wars.
Well, we were basically having our own little episode of Dark Side, Light Side as we were sitting there doing that. And, look, I didn't want to say anything when you got here, but because I want to save it till I'm on the air. Can I just tell you how excited I am that you're here doing this?
Thank you so much. Yeah, same here, man.
I think this is great. I am so excited about this. It has been, over 2.5 years since we've done a show like this together, and I know everybody who's watching has been really excited about it, and I've been excited about it. But before we get into it, though, before we jump into the main stuff here, you've just started off on your own thing again.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, you've taken what was you've already created, you've now kind of made it your main thing. It is the Schmodown Entertainment Network. That you've already gone ahead and launched, and just talk about that for a second. And I just want to know, having been through it myself, what's it like for you, like taking that jump and doing that stuff to having your own parachute sort of thing?
Daunting, very much so, but also very kind of liberating, exciting, and we have a great crew. Myself and Ellis, Kate Mulligan, RB3, Robert Butler, Brett Sheridan, David Michael Frank, Ben Goddard, Winston Marshall. So many good people so far there, and so many more people coming through on the show. But we launched. We had hiccups on the first show.
Always do.
We really did. A couple cameras going down, audio going out, but it's about righting the ship. And honestly, you remember back in the day what it was like with the Schmo Show. It feels like that vibe. It's like Clubhouse feel. I'm getting some great feedback from the fans so far. It's good. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Please subscribe today over at youtube.com/The Schmodown. Not only do we have the morning show that we do every day from 10 to 12. We also have the movie trivia Schmodown, or in the midst of the team tournament right now, the Schmodown Rundown, which is like the ESPN for the Schmodown. I'm very proud of it. I'm very excited for what we can do. We have more things coming, but yeah, it's a good start so far.
Well, dude, I'm very proud of you.
Thanks,
and
man.
I'm really excited for you. And I once I was done my show yesterday, I jumped on over and watched.
Did you enjoy it?
I did.
Oh, good.
It's been a while since I've seen you and Ellis on screen together, other than a Schmodown event or something like that, and it was just nice to see.
That was part of the thing that he and I wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that we could be on the air together at least once or twice a week, and to get that vibe of the two of us. We haven't been able to do that in a while, so once a week at least Mark will be on, and he's actually coming on Friday, so we'll have him twice a week. It's great. I mean, he's one of my best friends, so just to be able to talk with him, movies and everything else is great.
I got to see if someday I can sneak out and come down and join you guys one day. If we can work out the timing. But hey, listen, we'll talk about all that other really cool stuff a little bit later. We are here primarily to talk about Star Wars stuff, all sorts of Star Wars stuff, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to start things off here with, I think, the main topic. We are now, it's 1 week away, ladies and gentlemen, 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday. We've got the launch of Disney Plus, and of course, the most important thing about that is that Mandalorian launches. We are now counting down the hours and the minutes coming down to that whole thing. And Kristian, I wanted to talk to you about this because obviously we're all like, I'm stoked about this show. I cannot wait to see this show. Everybody's excited about it. When we found out Jon Favreau was going over and then Dave Filoni was involved, I mean, then we saw the incredible list of directors doing it and all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, it's the first, if we don't count the Christmas special, it's the first live action Star Wars stuff that's really being made for television. Now, we all know we're all excited, but what I wanted to ask you about, and it's been hard for me not to ask you about it over text or anything of that, but with this kind of being a new direction for Star Wars, with it being the first television foray, like even forget about the significance of Disney Plus and all that kind of stuff. Live action Star Wars, but not just being live action Star Wars on television. It's coming in between the divisive The Last Jedi and the eternally optimistic and hopeful The Rise of Skywalker. I wanted to get your thoughts on what is the importance and what is the significance of this Mandalorian? What kind of weight is on the shoulders of this Mandalorian show for when it comes to the future of Star Wars as a brand and kind of the future direction that we might see Star Wars take? What are you seeing when you look at The Mandalorian like that?
Well, it's significant. I think that the first thing on the business side of things is that when you look at it overall, is it's one of the big draws for Disney Plus. So you want to go after that Star Wars audience to try to get them to subscribe. And I can't even tell you how many different people I've talked to said they're getting Disney Plus because of The Mandalorian. So
it's funny. Somebody asked me earlier today. It's like Apple TV Plus is only launching with 4 shows. Who's signing up for that? And I said, well, let's face it. Half of us who are signing up for Disney Plus are just signing up for one show,
or they're
right
going
now.
after the Marvel audience, or they have a different. They're going after different people. But the big draw with Star Wars, obviously, you're going after original trilogy fans too, because it certainly feels like that when you look at some of the footage that they've shown, the extended scenes. If you were able to see it, whether it's they leaked it, but it was also at Star Wars Celebration. But as far as the significance of what it can mean, I've been saying this for like a year now. It's not that I'm not looking forward to Rise of Skywalker. I am. I really want to see that movie, and I'm looking forward to see what JJ does. This, I'm more excited for The Mandalorian than I am The Rise of Skywalker, because what TV in general has done over the last 5 or 6 years, whether it's Breaking Bad or Sons of Anarchy, any of those shows, you're with characters from start to finish that you get to grow with and learn. And we're doing that in a Star Wars. We've done that before in Rebels and in Clone Wars, but never in live action. We were supposed to get it back in like 2005 with Ronald Moore and all that. It was too expensive, and it was ahead of its time, quite honestly. What it does, if it does itself right, when you look at what Filoni and the way Favreau are talking about, this is a whole new medium for Star Wars to tell their stories inside of this galaxy that can create. It sets the stage for Obi-Wan. It sets the stage for Cassian Andor and brand new shows. They're already going into season 2 because they're that confident about it, and what they've done. So I think it's significant for what it's going to do, because you're going to unfortunately have that. You're going to see the comments of, "Oh, the films are dead. TV's where it's at." It shouldn't be that way, because I think Star Wars always holds a place in the theater. It always does. But TV is something special, because we're going to have brand new characters and a new way potentially to spin off. Imagine if you find a character inside of this Mandalorian that they don't even know. It's like a wrestler that goes over with the crowd.
When they weren't even expecting it.
Expected to. And if that character goes over with the crowd, if you will, hey, let's make a movie about that. Then it's not a forced movie. It's not, you don't have any things that you have to live up to. You can expand off, do a one-off, and be out and make a little extra and deliver it to the fans that are now invested in The Mandalorian.
I think one of the other interesting things is, besides just the realm of content, I think one of the other things that is really exciting about this, and kind of is laying the groundwork for where the brand is going as a whole, is, I'll talk about Dave Filoni specifically in a second, but I mean, you are looking at right now Star Wars bringing in a class of new directors just into the one show, whether it's a Bryce Dallas Howard or, Dave Filoni's going to be directing. Of course, we got Taika Waititi and others. We're bringing in a whole slew of directors to start working on Star Wars. So I think one of the things that The Mandalorian, maybe it was one of the intentional repercussions, maybe it was one of the unintentional benefits, but is the fact that now they're going to be able to work with some directors in a hands-on live action environment that's going to give them an idea about where they go. And I don't think it was a coincidence that one of the directors on this show then got, you know what? We know you're good. You're directing Obi-Wan.
And not even one episode, the whole series.
Yeah, you're directing, which is unusual for television.
It is. When you look, True Detective, I think, did it, but yes, it's usually one episode off, and it's a lot of work that someone has to do. You're essentially putting together, let's say Obi-Wan is 8 episodes. I don't know what they said it was, but let's say it's 8 episodes, or even 6. This is a 6-hour movie now that she's going to be directing. They have to have confidence in any director to say, okay, you know the property that well, and Filoni's going to endorse you because you're working on his show, and Favreau, that you're absolutely right. You find, and everyone so far that has been working on this show has said the same thing. When you hear comments, it's about how invested both Favreau and Filoni are in this and how excited they get people. When you listen to interviews with Gina Carano, and she's saying, well, I never really understood the fandom, but I'm the Star Wars fan now because they get me excited about it. That's infectious in anything that you do. If you're excited about a movie trivia show, and you tell people, oh, this could be and my energy can then you say, well, what is that? What and I start to get you excited about it the same way Favreau and other people can get others who are not so excited about Star Wars excited in Star Wars. And that goes back to your previous question. If you can get the casual TV watcher that says, I don't know, I'm not a Star Wars guy, but I'll watch one episode. And that casual fan now becomes invested and now becomes a Star Wars fan. That's where the switch happens. That's where you're going to get, because the Star Wars fan will go and the casual fan will see a Star Wars movie in the theater and shove popcorn in the face. The hardcore fan will go to kind of analyze it and see what's going on. But it's finding those new viewers on TV to get them hooked inside of the entire galaxy.
Right. And here's the other thing that I think is significant about this. And now I want to talk specifically about Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that me and a lot of my other fellow Star Wars fans, and I think you included, have been at odds over is, what do you do with Dave Filoni? What do you do with Dave Filoni right now? And a lot of people would say, get Dave Filoni direct the next Star Wars movie or whatever. And I've always been very apprehensive about that. And I liked it. I liked Filoni very much. But it was, and I don't know why I'm freezing on saying, who directed X-Men Dark Phoenix?
Oh, Simon Kinberg.
Simon Kinberg. It reminded me a lot of the Simon Kinberg situation, because when they announced Simon Kinberg directing X-Men Dark Phoenix, I was like, the dude has never directed a live-action feature film before.
That's different, though. He hasn't directed anything.
Right.
Filoni has a lot of experience directing.
Animation, but
still
never
directing.
live action. And I remember a lot of people would say to me, their justification for it was that, but John, very few people understand X-Men like he does. I'm like, it doesn't matter if he understands it. He hasn't directed something. Let him direct something else live action first before throwing him a tentpole size production. And I think one of the genius things about this whole thing, about Kathleen Kennedy matching up Dave Filoni with him, is that this is now giving Dave Filoni that ground.
Totally.
So now Dave Filoni's actually getting in there, and he's not directing just one. He's directing 2 of the episodes of Mandalorian. Now you've got a guy, and producing. Yeah. Now you've got a guy in Dave Filoni who's got the extensive background with the animation of Star Wars, but now you've got a guy who's also cut his teeth in a slightly smaller form live action environment. And if it goes as well as we think it will, I think that they have plans for Filoni directing features down the line, and I think a lot of that is going to come as a result of what they're doing here with this.
You know what's so funny about that? Because when from our days back talking Star Wars, I was always the one throwing the flag saying, let Filoni direct a movie, because I understand the Kinberg.
I know we've
had many conversations about it, but the Kinberg point I get, and I think when it comes to overall handing someone a production of that scale to say, hey, you've never directed anything of this scale before, it could be intimidating to anyone. The difference between the two of them, I thought, was because of the experience that Filoni had with George Lucas, the things that because setting up shots in animated, it's not the same as feature film, but it is still, it's storyboarding, it's doing all that stuff, and it's putting together like full-on production, what he had to do with Clone Wars and Rebels. So his eye, and I think his experience, far better match than I think a Kinberg jumping in there to do a movie. But the experience that he has on Mandalorian will help. But the funny thing, going back, I don't want him to do feature anymore. I don't want him
really.
I think he's better suited at 2 places. One, overseeing what's happening with the TV, because I think the better stories are going to be told on television. I think the Obi-Wan story is going to be better than anything we've seen in the feature film. I think the Mandalorian story is going to be better than anything we've seen on feature film. And I think that the other thing, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little later too, is I want to see Filoni, and this is the conversation spawning off of what you and I talked about at the movie theater. I think that whoever it is, whether it's a Kathleen Kennedy or whoever the executive is in charge of Lucasfilm, you can have this is going off something that you had said to spawn this conversation. You can have an executive that doesn't love Star Wars, but they got to know and they got to find the people that do, that can
just surround them.
Right. So I want Filoni to be that guy that not is the executive, but someone says, okay, Dave, you know what? You work with so-and-so. Tell me what films you think are going to work inside the Star Wars zeitgeist, and let's do that. I trust in you. I'm going to manage everything else. I'm Lucasfilm, the head of Lucasfilm. I'm going to go manage Indiana Jones. I'm going to go get some new IP. I'm going to put you and you together, part of this Star Wars project. Go and make me a good movie, or else I'll find somebody else who's going to. Like, that's my job as the top executive. I want Filoni to be a creative force inside of that, and I think that that's what he could do in TV and film, all of it.
See, and as a fan, I'll feel better about that once he actually, now that he's done it with Mandalorian, now that he's actually has a sense of what the differences are between doing it in an animated form and what it actually takes to bring it to life. And now that he's got that, I, as a fan who's always been apprehensive about just moving the animated guy up the chain like that, I feel better about that now.
Right.
I feel, well, I mean,
You want to see it first.
For all we know, look, for all we know, Mandalorian's going to suck. I have high doubt that that's the case, but it may suck. But if it turns out to be as good as we think it will, then I'm going to feel a lot better about Filoni. And I think that goes as much to the future of the Star Wars universe as anything else, is what are they doing? Because I feel like they are now grooming Filoni. You know what I mean? And I didn't necessarily feel that before, and now I do. And it's going to be interesting to see how that all kinds of works out. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about The Mandalorian? Obviously, we're all very excited about it, but what kind of significance do you see in this? Why do you think it is or maybe isn't important for the overall future of Star Wars, both in the immediate future, like right now, and down the line? I want to know your guys' thoughts. Jump down in the comments section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, we got a few other topics that we're going to talk about here before we go into the main questions. And, you know, I hopped on Twitter the other day and I asked you guys to let us know what it is you wanted us to talk about. So we've picked a couple of the tweets that you guys sent in that we're going to talk about here right now. And we're going to start things off with Santiago, who sent this tweet in. He says, when Luke says confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi, which we saw in the trailer, in the Rise of Skywalker trailer, who do you guys think he's talking to? At first, I thought that he could be telling it to Rey, which I think is what they were implying. However, it seems too obvious now. Could he be talking to Kylo? And, you know, Kristian, we have seen Star Wars, and not just Star Wars, we've seen films before get into a trailer, present something in a trailer that implies a certain obvious thing, but then it actually turns out to be something quite different. They weren't talking to that person at all, or they were referencing something completely different than what we were expecting. When we hear Luke say those words, and I suppose we have to take into consideration maybe the fact that this line won't even be in the movie at all, because we've seen that in Star Wars trailers as well, stuff that doesn't even make the trailer. But if this line is indeed in the trailer, obviously the implication is he's talking to Rey. Could he be talking to a Kylo? Could he be talking to, hell, any other kind of number of people? If you had to just say off the top of your head who you think he's actually speaking to, who's he referencing that line to?
Vegas betting odds is Rey. I think because of the way that it's set up and the way that they've set up the story in general, that it would make sense. She's on her own right now, and she's trying to. He says at the end of Last Jedi that she's not the last of the Jedi. She won't be the last of the Jedi. She's got to continue the legacy on, and she has to face this thing full on. And we're going to find out more about her and exactly kind of where it all comes from. But facing the fear is part of the Jedi. That's why I think that it's going to be her. I don't think that he's wrong that it could be Kylo, because I've said it many times that people are tired of me saying it. I think I'm not looking forward to the redemption of Kylo Ren. I think it is a given. I think it's going to happen. I think it's happened a billion times over, and we're going to see it again. For me, it's more about the execution. When I see it, am I going to say, okay, they handled that pretty good, or it's like, all right, we saw that coming a mile away. Either way, if that is the case when he's redeemed, then I could see that maybe that's the conversation that he has with his uncle, who says facing this is all part of it. But I put him second. There could be other people that we don't know about, but I would highly say that it's Rey is the most likely and probably the most obvious.
Right. You just opened up a hornet's nest, of course, with the whole Kylo thing, because I absolutely don't think they should redeem Kylo at all. I mean, you know, I've had this conversation like over the course of years. It's like, when I look at Star Wars and I look at pivotal moments, that whether you're looking at a Luke or you're looking at Vader, that each one of them faced pivotal, what I call the come to Jesus moments. With Luke, it's standing over Vader. He's now cut off Vader's hand. He's ready to strike him down. The Emperor's, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that was his moment, and he made a decision, and he made the light side choice. Vader had his coming to Jesus moment with looking at the Emperor frying his son, and that epic cinematography with that music playing as Vader's head turns back and forth between the Emperor and Luke. Yeah, and he makes his choice.
Right.
Oh God, why do you have to bring that up? And then he makes his choice, right? To me, Kylo also cinematically was given that choice. Not once, but twice. Yeah. And both times once in the
He
inexplicably
spit in our face, John. That's what you're saying. He spit in our face.
Yeah. I mean, so I feel like they shouldn't go that way. I also don't feel like they will. I think they're gonna tease it. It's gonna be something that's dangled, but I don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah, they're going to do it.
I mean, I know that's a possibility because that has been their pattern, and JJ likes to follow the patterns.
They just look so I think it harkens back to that conversation that they had in Last Jedi also, where she tells Luke, she says, I've seen the future, and he does go to the light side. It doesn't mean...
But she was wrong.
We don't know that she was wrong. We don't know that she was wrong. We know that maybe that's not what that maybe she wasn't seeing. She was seeing farther into the future than we saw.
Because didn't Kylo also say he saw her turning to the dark side, right?
And we see that and we see that in the trailer.
Well, that's a whole nother big question about what is it we're seeing in the trailer?
Right. So, but either way, I just don't think all the questions have been answered by a long shot. So, as far as the Kylo thing getting redeemed, it is just familiar things that we've done before, and we've seen JJ do familiar things, obviously in Episode 7, which I like very much. Yeah. But I do think there's a lot of familiar things, and I think there's going to be some more familiar tones, and we're not going to end on a down note. And he's either because the thing is, if you redeem him, you got to kill him, because if you don't kill him, then that's a lot of awkward dinners he's going to be having with people. You know what I mean? It's like oh yeah, I stood by and watched everybody. I didn't necessarily blow up all the planets, but I didn't stop them. Oh yeah, and I killed that guy. I killed my dad, but I'm good now. It's like no, he's got to go. We'll see.
Did you ever see? I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was Robot Chicken. That one little Robot Chicken sketch they did where they're on Endor and all the Force ghosts appear to Luke.
No.
And oh my God. So it's done in the Robot Chicken animation style, right? So Luke's standing there, he's talking to the Force ghosts, and then Vader's Force ghost is there. Anakin is there. And everybody's like, what the F are you doing here?
Right.
What? I saved my kid. Everything's good.
Right.
You murdered millions of people.
Exactly.
You're a dick.
Right, exactly.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
Yeah.
But I think you raise a great point, because I think if he stays dark, which I think he will, he's got to die. I think if he turns back to the light,
still got to
I also think you're right. I think he's got to die. So
yeah.
there's not much of a chance that Kylo Ren's getting out of this movie.
No, I think he's probably, if you asked top of the list who's the first one to go, it's going to be him. I think him and then Poe. I don't think Poe's going to die, but I think if anyone did, it would be Kylo and then Poe and the Emperor finally.
Right. All right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Question is for you guys then. What do you think about that? Who do you think he's talking to? I mean, it does make a lot of sense. The thing that turns most people to the dark side is fear. So maybe that's something Luke's saying to Kylo. Maybe something Rey is struggling with. Who knows? Who do you think he's talking to? You guys leave your opinions by jumping down the comment section below, or use the super chat function. We'll read it off a little bit later. All right. Let's move on to the next tweet that you guys sent in. And the second topic we're going to take from Twitter today comes to us from LJ Nielsen, who writes in, let's get this out of the way for the first episode. How would each of you rate the performance of Kathleen Kennedy to date and the general state of Disney, Star Wars, including movies, video games, merchandising? Well, no, we're not going to go into all of that. That's a little too broad. But where would we, as of right now, rate the performance of Kathleen Kennedy? All right. It is something that has been a big topic for a while. There are a lot of people that use Kathleen Kennedy as a scapegoat for things not going the way they want it to go with Star Wars. There are some people who have some technical gripes with some of the decisions that she's been making. There are some people that have an issue with me with the way they've dealt with talent and all that kind of stuff. So, Kristian, you and we started to have a brief conversation about this the other night, but when you sit back, because one of the things I don't think anybody can deny, people who want to oust Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think there's any denying that she's got some big high-profile wins under the win column for herself. I think if you are the most ardent Kathleen Kennedy supporter, you got to admit there are some questionable calls that have been made along the way. So you're sitting back here now, we're a number of years into this whole Star Wars at Disney experiment under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy. How do you assess it right now? Where do you put it all right now?
I'm detaching myself as a Star Wars lore fan and a Star Wars fan in general as far as the content and things that I want to see.
Which is tough to do.
But if I am, and if I'm doing it on an executive side, you have to rate her performance high on an executive level. Because even when you say, well, but she lost all this talent, she did all this, she very well might have, and I think it's a huge problem, and I'll go into that in the second half of this. But it's also, there's a lot of producers that would not handle that very well, and their movies, and it happens all the time that their movies fall apart, and their movies bomb, and their movies.
The Crow remake, anybody?
Tons of movies.
Yeah.
Tons of movies happen where the producer in charge can't get a hold of their production, loses a director, loses a writer, can't write the ship. Now, granted, they don't have the resources and the type of interest that are in Star Wars, but that's neither here nor there. She's in charge of the ship, so the question is, how do you do when you're in those positions? She lost the director in Trevorrow. She put JJ back in it. Okay, she got the fans back on her side, on that side, as far as getting it, writing it back after a lot of people were mad about Last Jedi. Now, people are mad at her for giving Rian Johnson so much freedom. The movie made $1 billion. Okay, so as Bob Iger, I'm going, that movie made a lot of money for me. I don't care what Yoda smells my feet 36 says on Twitter. As Bob Iger. I'm also looking at these other movies. Now, if I'm Bob Iger, I was go, well, it might be my goof that I put Solo in May, 2 weeks after Infinity War.
Right.
I should have put it in in December. So that's on me. Now, whether or not she should have made the movie in the first place is another conversation. But she's got, was it 5 movies so far?
4 in, well, fifth being
Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. And we're going to say we're pretty close to that's going to do pretty well if we look at the tickets. So she's going to have 4 out of 5 wins. Now, separating that, the big problem is the creative side of things. She's a great producer. She's a phenomenal producer. She's proven even
first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
Easily. But that doesn't mean you should be the creative head of the entire company. It just repeating exactly what I said before, that great producer should say, you and you do this. I think that sometimes she thinks that you just go to the mainstream fan. You can make things that are not super mainstream. Guardians of the Galaxy, anybody? You can make movies into global, massive, mainstream hits if you trust in the material. There are tons of books out there, tons of Legends books out there that are ripe for stories for movies. Okay, there's so much out there, and if you listen to the rumors that could or could not be out there with Benioff and Weiss, is that they wanted to do the formation of the Jedi and all this, and that she doesn't. It wasn't. There was a lot of creative walls that she was putting up. So that's the big problem. So in that performance, I rate low. I rate her making money and her production side. I rate that high, but I rate her creative performance pretty low. Maybe a 5.
To me, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's different ways to look. You look at the wins. First of all, under her watch. Now, everybody can say, but that's just because it was a Star Wars movie. Yeah. Guess what? There have been a lot of Star Wars movies, and none of them have come close to, like, the Force Awakens. It's not Avengers Endgame. The #1 domestic box office film of all time is actually still Star Wars The Force Awakens. Yep. A lot of people forget about that. Endgame has the more important worldwide number, but domestically it's still there. Made over $2 billion at the box office. The 4 films under her collectively have made over $4 billion. You're averaging over $1 billion. And yeah, Solo never should have been made. I still remember you and I were on a show when they first came out, and I said on that show, they shouldn't make this movie. It's not a good idea to make this movie. But they went ahead and made it anyway, and what have you. She has accumulated a whole bunch of wins. There's no doubt about that. And it's hard, especially when you're talking about in a corporate environment, about huge corporate accomplishments, to spin that negatively. They made a ton of money and they've been radically successful on a certain level.
Right.
At the same time, there are people with very short memories who look at The Last Jedi, which is very divisive. I like the film. I have my issues with it. But there are people who look at it and pretend like it's the first time a Star Wars fandom's been divided over something, as if the prequels never happened. But still, that was under her watch. My big concern has been, because I like what you were saying there about how, you've got to be able to get the people around you that you trust and let them unleash their creativity and all that kind of stuff. And to me, one of the things I've always said, whether it's Kevin Feige or whether it's Kathleen Kennedy or whether it's whoever other creative head of any other studio, the #1 responsibility they have, in my opinion, is to hire the right people, vet them, make sure you're 100% on the same page with them, because it's all about creative direction. And if they're not on the same page with you, and if you're not on the same page with them, then you're inviting disaster and chaos into your house. And what we have seen out of Kathleen Kennedy on this side so far has been 4 movies in, 5 major dramas with filmmakers.
Right.
Going all the way back.
Not including the Josh Trank situation.
Well, yeah, if you want to even go all the way back to Josh Trank, and then you can say, well, they fired him because of all the drama they said that went on the Fantastic Four set. Okay, how come Kathleen Kennedy did not vet him properly to know if that was an issue or not, and had to find out from Variety? You know, that's concerning to me. How come she gets into a Rogue One situation with Gareth Edwards, and all of a sudden we find out there are massive creative clashes between her and the thing?
Miller.
Why didn't you figure that out in advance?
Yeah.
Lord and Miller. Why were you not able to ascertain and vet them properly to know if they were going to go a little bit rogue and start taking the movie in another direction?
Here's my big problem, that when you look at all that stuff, it seems in the producer side, it doesn't seem that it's a matter of finding the best Star Wars material. What it seems to be is, who are the hot directors right now? Who are the who's really, that guy that did Monster and Godzilla, let's get him. Oh, the guy that did, the ones who did 21 Jump Street, people love them, let's get them. Oh, that guy, let's get him, let's get them. And it's not, what's the best story? Because I don't care if she doesn't know a thing about the Old Republic or some of the other things. I don't care if she doesn't know anything about it. But to shoo it away, and we don't necessarily know if that's the case, but because she doesn't think it's mainstream enough, she doesn't get it. That hurts the Star Wars franchise. It needs to, and not just the Old Republic. I'm just using it as an example of stuff, as opposed to just getting that director's hot right now, let's get them. It's not working. This is why if what has been working, going back to the Mandalorian conversation, here's this idea that we have about this rogue bounty hunter. And we're going to throw in all these references and things. And then the directors are going to come in here, and they're going to work with our guys, Favreau. It's exactly what we're talking about, what we want them to do. Favreau and Filoni. Work with them, see what you can do. And the Caranos of the world and these people who didn't maybe love Star Wars now, whether they're saying it for PR or they really mean it, the love is coming out of the promotion for this thing, and it hasn't even aired. So I think, why not transfer that philosophy over to film? That to me seems like that'll be a win, because I don't want to lose the formation of the Jedi thing. I think that would be a great idea to do, but I think we'll probably lose it now because Benioff and Weiss are not doing it anymore.
One of the other problems I see here too is that when you look at somebody, I'm not trying to say everything needs to be like Marvel. Okay, I'm not. But when you look at Kevin Feige's approach, right? Kevin Feige has a circle of people that he works with. They come up with what they want their general story direction to be. And then he finds directors who can carry out that thing perfectly. And he works with them. The only real director drama under 10 years of Kevin Feige was
Edgar Wright. Well,
Edgar Wright
Patty
with Ant-Man.
Patty Jenkins too. They had Patty Jenkins for
a little
Dark
bit. But that was even a minor one.
It was minor, but still.
But the Edgar Wright thing was the major one. But that took place over 5 years from when the first pitch was done, and there was understanding about that. He makes sure he finds filmmakers who are 100% on the same page with him, understand the creative vision, and then lays out, this is what I need to have happen in this movie. All the other gray area, you're free to play around with. Go.
That's a bigger question. Because what it seems like is it's on the Star Wars side of the thing. Okay, John Campea, you're a big director right now. What movie do you want to do? And what vision do you see it happening? Well, I see this. Good, go and make that. As opposed to, hey, we like what you're doing. This is the direction that, basically what you're saying. It's like, this is the direction that we need this franchise to go. Throwing your take in there too. Can you see it going that way? Do you like what we're doing here? Because if not, great, we'll work on something else together, but this is how we want it to go. And that doesn't seem to be the direction that they're in at the moment. I think they're going to get there, though, and I think that's one of the reasons that they're having these conversations with Kevin Feige.
And when you look at her history is working on, for the most part, solo shot movies or 1 or 2 or 3 part franchises with great directors, and she knows how to work with people on that level of excellence. She brings a level of excellence. It's a little bit of a different thing when you're trying to string together, all of your films are supposed to work together in a coherent sort of way. Right. And that's why how I would rate her, right now, I'm giving her a push. I'm giving her a push right now. I'm pushing. I'm saying right now, to me, pardon me, her ledger's balanced right now. I've got some things that I'm really concerned about, but she's got some massive wins. I think Mandalorian, one of the best things she's done as an executive there right now, and you and I have talked about this, is the fact that once Favreau came to her with his pitch, and she's gotten hundreds of pitches, Not only did she see the potential in it, but the first thing that Favreau says she did is, I want you and Dave Filoni to work together on this. That's a nice sign. That's a good sign. I think right now we're going to tell a lot about what has she learned as we now get into Mandalorian and Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. I think we're going to find out a lot.
I agree, and I know we don't want to stay on this too long, but it's this is from things that we hear, rumblings that we hear, is that's exactly what happens. You put them together, and then she let them do their thing. Even if she didn't get everything that they were doing, she let them do their thing and go off, and didn't put her hands in a lot of it. She's a film producer. She's a film producer. So she likes to put her hands inside of it, but it's hard when it's not, she knows how to make the movies. She's like you said, Hall of Fame producer. Does she love Star Wars? Not making the movies of Star Wars. Does she love the actual Star Wars itself? And like you said, you don't have to. But if not, just pair up more combinations like Filoni and Favreau or whoever it might be, the same way that Favreau just plucked, and forgive me for the who's directing Obi-Wan.
The girl. I'm freezing on her name right now.
But she has proven without a shadow of a doubt that she knows exactly what she's doing. She's just done 2 Mandalorians. They love it, and they just gave her 6 Obi-Wan, right? And I don't want to hear any of this crap that they just did it because she's a woman. It's horrible because she has proven.
Look at her resume. Look at that girl's resume.
Her resume is out of control. I was so excited when they said that she's going to be doing the series. But things like that, let's do that for the films. But anyway, we could literally talk about this for the whole show.
All right, question is, I'm giving her a push. So you were...
I went creative, I went lower, but on an overall executive, I'll give, out of 10?
Sure.
I don't know. I'd say you have to rank her at a 7.
All right.
7
I'm gonna go a little lower. I'm gonna go about a 6, around the middle right now. But again, I'm going into Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker with a clean slate with her. And let's see what she's learned.
She's going to walk out with 2 big wins with both of those.
I certainly hope so. Yeah. Guys, what do you think? You think she's going to walk out with 2 big wins here? How would you put things right now? Jump in the comments below and let us know your thoughts. All right, let's go on and take one more tweet from you guys. And this one comes into us from Bob Golub, who writes... Bob Glub writes, love to see you guys back together again. Thank you so much. We're enjoying it too. Do you guys think anyone from this current trilogy gets a Disney Plus show? If so, who would you want or guess gets it? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Bob. And that's a really, really good question. And I'll tell you why I think it's a relevant and a fascinating question. Because when you look at it, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, not so long ago, Kathleen Kennedy said in an interview that there's going to be future movies, at the time she said movies, with Poe, Finn, and Rey. She mentioned all 3 of them. I think those plans seem to be gone. But it seemed to me at the time that, at least in her mind, she's got future plans for all those characters. With that in mind, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, I actually do think we're going to get a Disney Plus series with one of these guys. I think they're going to take the movies in a different direction. I don't think they're going to carry on these characters in the movies after Episode 9. But I could totally see Poe getting a series. Because now they've included the Poe character in that new animated, was it Resistance?
Resistance, and he had his own comic.
I can see them wanting to work with John Boyega more. Boyega's loved his experience there. So I'm going to say I give it an 80% chance that within the next 3 years we find out that there is a Disney Plus series with one of these 3 here. If I had to give an odds-on favorite, I would right now say Poe, but it could be either one of them. I don't know. You're seeing this, Kristian. What do you think?
I don't think that it's going to happen soon. I think there's other ways that they could expand, because I think that that's the beauty of the television, is that you don't, when you go into films, you try to like grab onto certain movies, like they try to do a Solo and like, oh, nostalgia and all that. And I think that if they did that, I mean, Marvel has shown that they're going to do that a couple times, right? They're doing the Falcon and doing Scarlet Witch. So it's certainly possible. I think that if anybody got one, I think it actually would be Finn. I think Finn would be...
Really? Over Poe and stuff like that?
Over Poe. I think Finn has the more interesting story, and I think he's going to have a much bigger arc in this episode, that it's going to expand, that we're going to learn a lot more about him and what he's capable of and what he's going to do. And if that is the case, then yeah, I could see him having his own series for sure. Plus the fact that Boyega, to me, seems the most invested in Star Wars out of the 3 of them, and would probably want to continue on doing more stuff. I think that... and I just think his character is more interesting, even though I think he was moved to a secondary character in Last Jedi. I think
did not like how they used him in Last Jedi.
It just went off what they were from where he started in Force Awakens to where they ended with him in Force Awakens, and then he just started that beat all over again in Last Jedi. We're going to see a more confident Finn this time. We're going to see. I have my theories. I've mentioned it many times what I think is going to happen with him. But I think that it also allows him to have his own series. But I don't know if they're going to do that first. I think they're going to focus on Mandalorian, Obi-Wan. I would like to see them go back. Everyone's been talking about Old Republic stuff, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see them go back, and it's the only way you can do it in a series that you couldn't do on film, or not you can, harder to do, to focus on a villain. Now, I think on TV, I think you can focus on a villain, whether it's Palpatine or Plagueis or Darth Bane or Darth Revan. Any of those inside of a Disney Plus series could be interesting because you have enough time that you can balance out the good and the bad people and give characters, but the it's like a Walter White, right, or Tony Soprano, but it's on TV and it's not rated R. It's harder to do in film,
right?
But I think out of all of that, if you're gonna 5 years maybe, and it's Finn.
You know what's interesting? Neither one of us said Rey.
She doesn't seem like she's interested in Star Wars anymore.
Well, there's that, and on top of the fact that she is. I mean, Rey is the centerpiece of the new trilogy.
Yeah.
I don't see her dying at the end of this movie. And yet I don't see them making another movie with her, and I don't see them doing a series with her. So,
ever again? Because I could see in like 20 years from now,
well, I mean,
back to her.
Whenever we get beyond 4 years,
then it's like anything
then
possible.
It's infinite possibilities. Because like this business changes overnight in like every 30-day cycle, right? So I don't know. That's interesting. I know what I'm not interested in. I am not interested in a
BB-8 series.
Definitely not a BB-8 series. But I'm also not interested in a Palpatine series.
Oh wow!
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm glad Palpatine is back for the final one. That just feels right with the whole saga. But I'm not interested. You know me.
Allow me to try to convince you, sir.
Please do. The floor is yours.
Picture. You know how much I like the novel of Darth Plagueis.
Yes, right. Yes, you do.
So picture a young Tom Hiddleston as a Palpatine senator back in that time, and the Mune himself, Darth Plagueis. It's a mixture of both Plagueis and it's got that mob element to it, but you're learning of where Palpatine actually came from and seeing it's like the start of Voldemort, you know,
right?
And watching and getting a good political series from Disney Plus, but watching the way that he becomes the Palpatine that we know, especially after Episode 9. After Episode 9, where he's just going to be this really infinite being, whether or not he's a vision or a ghost or come back to life, whatever it might be, he came back and he was able to really learn a lot. And who did he learn it from? He learned it from Darth Plagueis. And to see the origin of that, to see the start of how he was an apprentice in a 6-episode series, 10 episodes with the right actor, I think could be something that they've never done before. And again, leading with the villain. So I'd be interested in it.
Not selling me.
Son of a...
Look, it's just the whole thing. I'm not interested in where Yoda came from. I'm not interested where Palpatine came from. I am done with the whole idea of closing off the Star Wars universe. It's time to move beyond. Now, I was also, I'll give credit where it's due. I was also against the idea of doing something with Obi-Wan. You ultimately convinced me to get a little bit excited about it. So when it got to the point that they then announced an Obi-Wan series, because you convinced me, listen, because of what happens, and we just don't know what happens between the events of Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, it's not like it's revisiting stuff we already knew. It's like, it's not the origin of Obi-Wan. It's not anything like that. There's a whole opportunity there, and you and a bunch of other people convinced me to get excited about that. But I'm drawing a line there.
Palpatine?
The universe is just too big, and Palpatine, by the time Episode 9 is done, I think we'll all have our fill of Palpatine.
I would much rather see a Palpatine series than a Rey series or a Poe series or a Finn series. I'll tell you that because I think that we haven't got our fill of it, because I think that's also, we haven't seen enough dark side stuff. We haven't seen enough Sith stuff.
You're not wrong there.
A Sith series, to me, we haven't seen it. And to learn, they're some of the most powerful ones that we've ever seen before, and to understand that side of it, and to see the human side of it, and to see if they go with the James Luceno novel of this damaged family that Palpatine came from. Palpatine, this is Legends, and not canon. Palpatine killed his family. And that's how he ultimately became inside of the dark side, and the things that he did and the protection that he gave Palpatine for a long time. He was like his capo in his mob, and then eventually turns on him. To see all of that transpire in a limited series, I don't think I'd want to see it go for like 2-3 seasons, maybe one season, 6 episodes, and I don't want to see Obi-Wan go past 6 to 8 episodes. I think it's these long movies that they can do. But I think that you can do it. I don't disagree with that. I don't need to see, I don't need to see a Yoda movie or Yoda series. I don't need to see a lot of these. I didn't need to see a Han Solo movie. And I didn't mind the movie. It was fine. But there are certain movies I'd be very interested in, and it might also be biased because Palpatine's my favorite character.
It's Palpatine is also Anne's favorite character.
Yeah.
She's got this great Obama election poster, hope poster, but it's Palpatine.
Yes, we can.
It's so good.
Do it.
Anne loves him so much. Okay, guys, question is then for you. Do you think that any of these main characters we've seen in the current trilogy, could they eventually spin off into something we see on a Disney Plus series? If so, who would you like to see? Jump down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right, now, for the rest of this episode, Kristian and I are going to take your guys' live questions. You guys have been firing in the live questions, so let's not waste any time and jump on over there and start taking them right now. And we're going to get things started off here with Samuel C137, who writes, I was hoping you all would stick with Campea and Harloff, because in my opinion, there's only so many things to say about Star Wars, but I'm glad you two guys are back together. Well, originally the plan was for Kristian and I, at first, was to do 2 shows. We were going to do a Star Wars show. We were going to do Campea and Harloff, where we talked about just about everything. But my schedule was already tight, but because Kristian's was open enough, we could make it work great. But then Kristian's schedule started getting really tight too, and it unfortunately became a little bit of a difficult thing. Not to mention Kristian and I live about 45 minutes to an hour apart. It's hard.
It's tougher. It was easier for me to get over here today, but the traffic, I mean, yes, my crew. It's very hard to get back and forth on this side of it. But this one actually, and it falls on me, because I thought originally I'd be able to do 2 afternoon shows, and it's a little easier for me to do an afternoon show when I can pop into my garage and say, I'll do half an hour, 45 minutes, but then to rely on someone else's schedule, and also to say someone, hey, listen, I'll be there and I won't be. I don't want to put anybody out. So I told John, like, straight up, and I said, look, this is the thing. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I'd hate to start both shows and then throw that on you afterwards. So, and because of that. And the one thing I would disagree with is he and I could talk Star Wars for 6 hours.
We've been talking Star Wars for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we've never once struggled with what we're going to talk about.
We were talking about it like before we started Terminator for a while, until the lights went down. We're like, we can finish that conversation later. We'll always be able to talk about Star Wars, and I think there's always, whether it's the business aspect of it, what we want to see, what we hope sees, what we just saw. There's a lot to talk about, and we just haven't done it in a long time. So I think you'll be surprised.
All right, let's move on here. Next one up comes to us from James Dixon, who writes, hey guys, Dominic Monaghan's character is not yet named. Over or under 30% that he could be Jason Syndulla. By the way, they always pronounce it 2 different ways. In the audiobook versions of the novels, they say Syndulla.
Yeah.
Thrawn, in the animated series, says Syndulla.
Maybe that's just the way he talks.
A little bit different. Yeah, maybe it's just the way he talks. Anyway, so hyped for this show. And of course, Jason Syndulla, he is the offspring of General Syndulla and the Jedi Kane, Jarrus. I am going to go, I wouldn't say 0, but I will go well under 30%. So I'm going to take the under on that. What about you, Chris?
1%.
1%. So you're going to take under that.
He doesn't even look like a Twi'lek. You got to look. I mean, Jason Syndulla looked like a half Twi'lek.
Did we see him in the trailer though?
In Dominic? Yeah. You saw him. He's briefly in it. Maybe the viewer also didn't realize that too. He's in the back with Rose.
Okay.
I believe he's with Billy Lord.
And nothing like a Twi'lek. So that probably takes care of that.
So I would say no shot.
Joe Borello writes, over under 35%. John Campea returns to kick some ass in the Schmodown Star Wars division in 2020. By the way, big fan of you guys, and I'm very excited to see you team up again for the show. Thank you so much for that, dude. I really appreciate it. Listen, one of the things I have always said, there is simply no honor in a man fighting children. There's simply no honor in that. I really don't have much to do there. What you might see happen is me on the desk with Kristian again in 2020. That could very well happen depending on schedules and stuff like that. But
yeah, schedules is always the crazy thing. But it's a matter of just I'm building out the Schmodown, trying to. And the Star Wars division also is we only do like 1 or 2 a year now because there's just not a lot of competitors, and we want to do it at Star Wars Celebration. So there's just not as many, but we are doing a big match on December 7th, which is going to be Alex Damon and Laura Kelly, so that'll be exciting.
And then you've got a live event coming up in LA.
That's December 7th. It's spectacular.
That's the December 7th
so
one.
there's going to be 5 matches. You can get tickets if you want to come check it out. If you've never seen a Schmodown, theschmodownlive.com, and it's 5 big matches, all the titles on the line. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, let's keep things moving here. The next one up comes to us from Harris Hacko writes, both of you seem different on this, so I saved this question until you were in the same room. What are your thoughts on Luke Skywalker's portrayal in The Last Jedi? That's actually something you and I have never actually talked about.
Not together, yeah.
Well, look, I'm actually very good. Look, everybody knows I have some issues with Star Wars The Last Jedi. However, the saving grace for me about Star Wars The Last Jedi that really made it ultimately work for me was I loved what they did with Luke. And I know there's a lot of people who differ with me on this, but I thought what they did with Luke was not only scarily consistent with what we've seen from the Luke Skywalker character in previous films. I thought it was way different from the stereotypical way that another movie would have done it with the hero and all that kind of stuff. I actually quite enjoyed it a lot. I'm going to guess Kristian didn't. But anyway, what do you
guessed
think?
correct. Yeah, no, I like it less and less every time I see it. And because the first time I saw the movie, I didn't tweet anything out. People were like, why didn't you tweet anything? I said, I need to digest. Saw it the second time, and I said, no, you know what? I think it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. And I do think it's a really good Rian Johnson movie. I just don't think it's a great Star Wars movie. And one of those reasons is because I don't like the way they handled Luke at all. And I think that by the end, I was one of those people, and you can say, sorry, you didn't get that. It's just not the way it was. It's a typical thing. I wanted to see the Luke Skywalker I always thought I was going to get from like the Timothy Zahn novels. And
sure.
And it looks like...
you know I was there, too.
Yeah, I know.
You know I was there,
But it looks
too.
like we got him that way in that time period, but it was after Kylo turned on him that he started to go down that path of 6 years before or 5 years before that's when he went into his hermit mode and was going to give up. And why didn't Yoda visit him early to tell him, hey, everything's going to be all right? He had to wait until the dire straits at the end. It's like that. And even I would have been okay with all of that stuff and the projection, because I liked the reveal of he was able to project himself. If he would have showed up on the Falcon with all of them afterwards, like, I'm past this. I'm past this thing that I did, and I was in my head. I'm out, and I'm with you guys. And when he says to him, I'll see you around, kid, meaning I'm going to see you in the next movie. And if he would have died in the last movie, and this movie coming up, then I think it builds it up. By him just disappearing out of nowhere, and he uses all his energy for that particular thing, and that's why he sacrificed himself, there was no really explanation for it as far as why he's one with the Force. And like, eh.
By the way, I still say there's a 5% chance he's actually alive, flesh and blood.
0%.
They never actually said he died.
0%.
They implied he died.
He's a Force ghost.
I'm,
he didn't even show up to Star Wars Celebration.
I am 95% with you. But I will say this. Somebody brought this up to me in a question, but, you know, I was disappointed that we didn't either see Palpatine or Luke in the trailer, right? Then somebody said to me, well, John, regarding Palpatine, you know, what if there is something about the appearance of Palpatine that were they to show him, it would reveal something very major about the film. And then somebody else followed up with that and said, following on that, John, what if they couldn't show you Luke? Because if they showed you Luke, you'd see that he's flesh and blood or blah, blah, blah.
Or they don't want you to see the look of how he looks yet.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, there's a lot of different ways they can go.
I think he's toast on that one. I do think I have a lot of different opinions on what Palpatine could be, but that's another question.
All right, we got to keep flying here. We got a bunch to get through here. Harris, or that was Harris. Okay. Soggy Mini Muffins writes,
yes, I love him.
Being together is so much better than being alone. No, it's great having. You guys will never have any idea how much.
You don't have a robot voice now, do you, Soggy?
Murray Reich writes, hey, Kristian, it's great to have you here. Do you think JJ will stick the landing with Episode 9? And do you think Palpatine will have a bigger role? Well, I mean, I don't know what a bigger role compared to what, but what do you think? You think JJ's going to stick the landing on this?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to. I think that I think some people will say, well, no matter what he does, that it was easy, it was fan service, it was all of that, but that's kind of what needs to be done, and I don't ever really think fan service is a bad thing if done correctly. I think I want to have a lot of fun on this adventure, and I think that's what he's good at. I think that's what we'll do. I think Palpatine does have a much bigger role and overall role. Now, whether or not, I've said it's very possible he could be doing this Voldemort thing, and if they said that there's a lot of rumors that they're going to try to connect the entire saga, right? And if that's the case, then what better way to then reference the Plagueis thing? He taught him how to cheat death. That's why I never understood that silly thing when they said, in case of emergency, break glass and get Palpatine out. It makes sense from start to finish. It makes sense when you say this is what he's been trying to do. It's not easy to come back from the dead. He's been trying to figure out how to do it. And he's had vessels, and maybe Snoke was a vessel, maybe these other things were a vessel. Matt Smith could be that vessel, right? There's so many different possibilities, or he could just be holograms that Kylo and other people have been listening to.
Well, and in Battlefront 2, I mean, we had that thing of him in that android, right? So, I mean, personally, I do think JJ will stick the landing, if for no other reason that I actually completely love The Force Awakens. I love that movie. So I think he will. Will he? Well, we'll find out in just a little over a month from now.
That's
all right.
crazy.
Evelyn, where do we go here? Evelyn writes, I know it's hard to say without watching the show, but do you think they are going for a multiple seasons or a miniseries type with Mandalorian? Well, Evelyn, we can actually answer that one with some certainty because they've already announced that they are moving forward with the series.
They're in production. They're in production already.
They already started shooting?
Yeah, I think so.
Or are they in pre-production already?
They might have started shooting because Favreau didn't direct any episodes in season 1. He is directing either 1 or 2 in season 2. So that.
But I haven't even heard of the director lineup this one. So I wonder,
no, I don't think they've announced all the directors.
Either way, it's coming.
It's happening, and cast is happening, and I think they start shooting in January, maybe, or maybe they started. I don't know. Either way, we know we're getting that. Now Obi-Wan might be limited.
Yeah, they might just do that as a limited. What do they call an HBO? A television event.
Yeah.
Like Chernobyl. It's a one-series television event. So maybe we'll have to wait and see. Jose Miaz writes, second sister is Mara Jade or Barriss Ophi. So second sister, if I'm remembering it correctly, is one of the Inquisitors.
Yeah.
So could that have been Mara Jade? I don't think so. Barriss, they dealt with in the animated series because she betrayed Ahsoka.
Right.
She's the one who betrayed Ahsoka.
Right.
I mean, unless there's something out there that I just haven't seen, I honestly don't think it's either.
If it's either one, it's Barriss.
I would agree. Yeah, if it was either one. I don't think it is, but that seems to make the most sense to me. All right, Kyle Beckworth writes, the dynamic duo is back, proud Patreon of both. Hey, Kyle, thank you so much, very much, for not only being here and watching the content, but thank you for being one of those people who actually likes to support the content that they enjoy, and we both appreciate that very much, dude. All right, Suthius writes, hey guys, happy seeing you work together. Kristian, congratulations on another endeavor. I've been keeping up with you since Toad Hop. May the Force be with you. Dude, that's going back a ways.
Toad Hop, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Thank you for that, and thank you for all the support that I've been getting here. Thank you to John also for the support. The network it's up and running, so please, if you haven't, please go and subscribe to youtube.com/The Schmodown.
All right, here we go. Next up, Newman Studios writes, Disney Plus early morning launch to avoid server crash. Well, I don't know if it's to avoid server crash, but yeah, I guess they thought bright and early, 6 a.m. East Coast time. I mean, that might, it's something I hadn't considered, Newman, but you might actually be onto something there. All right, Gandrew10 writes, you have differing views on whether Vader should appear or be a villain in the Obi-Wan series. Would love to hear you debate this. Thanks. Well, we don't have a lot of time right now.
This could be a whole topic on the show.
It could be a whole topic, but just for those of you who don't know that, just to be clear on what our positions are. Hell no, Vader should not be a part of the Obi-Wan show.
Hell yes, he definitely should be a part of it because it makes so much sense when you look at the overall working of the lore.
But I think we already got our one of the next topics for the next episode of this show. So now you guys know what to look forward to. Okay, next up we have here, Samuel C137 writes, do you have thoughts on how China forces us to self-censor our media? Normal political actors like Ruffalo haven't said free Hong Kong yet. If he did, he'd be fired as the Hulk the next day, or else Disney wouldn't be able to put movies with him and Hulk in China more. It's kind of eerie. I'll tell you what, Samuel, not to discount anything that you're saying at all, though that's pure speculation what you're saying, but we're not here to talk about political issues. We're here to talk about movies, and we're here to talk about the things we love, and I get it, there's a movie connection there, but we're not here to get into some political discussion. I appreciate you sending in the question, I really do, and I can see why you're wondering about that, but again, that's getting involved in a lot of political speculation. That's just something I don't want us to do here on this show. But so I hope you understand that, buddy. I really do.
Do they want a Palpatine series? I mean,
They could be that. Yeah. They want that badly. Suthius writes, excited to see Ming-Na Wen be in The Mandalorian. Listen, I don't like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at all. I hate that show.
But
yeah, the two things I've always said, Clark Gregg is a national treasure in my opinion, so I'll watch whatever he's in, it doesn't matter. And Ming-Na, I've always liked her.
And as an assassin, are you kidding me? Sign me up. Yeah. And what a nice, see, this is what they're doing right. What a pleasant little reveal on the way that they did that. It's just they're doing everything right. Yeah, Ming-Na went as an assassin. That's what you're also going to see in The Mandalorian. There are also people that are going to keep popping into this show that you may not know. Even little aliens that some unknown actor who's going to crush you. Like, that character was the best. Did you see that guy? He was riding a Rancor. It's like that. I can't wait.
I will say it does bring up one interesting thing though. The one thing, like the announcement of Carl Weathers being in, I thought I never would have thought that. That's interesting. The director, Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
Werner Herzog. I was like, ooh, Werner Herzog.
Wouldn't you agree?
The one thing about Mandalorian that made me go, do these guys know what they're doing? Was the casting of Gina Carano. I mean,
because an actress, because you don't think she's a great actress.
Because I just don't think she's a great actress.
Yeah.
I am a huge Gina Carano fan, going all the way back to her MMA days.
Yeah,
very, very much. And I thought what they used her for in Deadpool was perfect because they didn't require her to do a lot of acting. And maybe that's exactly what they have in mind. But, and I don't know, maybe they just figured out the secret button to push to get the best out of her that they can. But I will admit, that's the one thing that made me go,
I think that's fair.
Really?
She's not a great actress. I mean, when you look at Haywire and all of it,
they had to replace her dialogue. And,
she's a phenomenal action actress, though.
She's got a great physical presence, no doubt about it.
I think that's what they're going for. Everything you've seen so far in the actual trailer. And Favreau's also a very good actor's director.
Yes, he is.
So that is something that, because he's an actor. So, and because he's so passionate about Star Wars, and I think that going back to the comments we made before about Gina Carano being so kind of seduced by Star Wars, because she's probably having such a pleasant experience and finding things about herself, because she still says, I'm not an actress. Like, that's not how you should market yourself, because you are an actress, you're in all these things. But she is, I think we're going to see the best work out of her yet. Out of this show.
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed if that is the case. All right. Let's see here. Ben Rayner writes, hey, John and Kristian, I just want to tell you both good luck. Nice little airplane reference. We're all counting on you. Here's my question. Over or under 40% Vader in Obi-Wan series, and should he be there? Okay, so again, we will go more in depth into that. Now, the question, though, about will he is a different question from should he.
Right.
Will he is different from should he. I still think 40% is high, even if we're not talking about should he be there. Like if you said 5%, I'd take the over. But at 40, I'm going to take the under on that. Kristian, what about you?
40 is low. Over.
Really? You're going to go the other way on that?
Yes, because this is another series that at the time period when you're trying to sell Disney Plus, who is your big... It's like having... You don't have Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock show up on your big program when you can do it. I know it's a dated WWE reference, but you know what I'm saying.
But
it's
they still do it. They still have The Rock show up when they need
Hulk Hogan and Flair are selling events now. You know, so it's like if you have Vader at this point to try to sell the casual fan on it, and it fits inside the story, and I believe it fits into the story, and I know we'll go into depth on it in the next show. It fits in very much so, because we don't know still how the hell Obi-Wan even knew that Darth Vader was still alive afterwards, and all these things that he was going through, and there's so much to talk about.
And I'm going to save everything until the next episode. I'm going to save it. All right, next up, Patrick Conway writes, do you think the crawl will be in The Mandalorian? Unfortunately, no. One of the decisions, it's not important, but one of the dumber decisions I think that Kathleen Kennedy has instituted was no opening crawl for things other than the episodic movies, which is stupid. The comic books have had opening crawls. Video games have had opening crawls. It's just part of the things that announces to you you're watching a Star Wars movie. So unfortunately, no, I don't think it'll be there. Let's put it this way. I'll be pleasantly surprised if it is. What do you think?
I agree with you. I agree with actually everything you said. I think that it won't be in there, and I think it should be in there. I was I was bummed. And it's more than just like, whatever. It's part of Star Wars. And I think that Solo lost something from not having one. Rogue One definitely, even though the opening was cool to see that flashback, it definitely opened some.
The flashback was cool, but you and I were sitting like basically right in front of each other, and I love Rogue One. I love that movie. But when that movie just started, Rogue One, I'm like, it didn't feel right.
It was jarring. And I think that when you watch it in the video games, like it just feels right. And it goes back to those old school serials that George watched again, despite Flash Gordon did it, the old school Flash Gordon. So I think they need to bring it back. And I think that they should bring it back for all the properties and not just make it a saga film.
I agree. I don't know that they will,
I don't think they will either.
At least not yet. Kyle Beckworth writes, over under 25% Ahsoka makes an appearance in Mandalorian. Now look, that might surprise you because everybody knows I'm not a big fan of Ahsoka Tano. But
Which
I'm
is
gonna
crazy,
say,
by the way.
I'm going to go over 25%. And here's why. Because Dave Filoni has a Cialis-level boner for that character.
Right.
I'm fairly certain he touches himself to the thoughts of Ahsoka Tano on a daily basis.
Wow. I don't know if I'm going to go that far.
And because of that, I still don't think it's likely. Like if you said over under at 50, I'd take under 50. But I'm actually going to take the over on 25%. What do you think?
I think for season 1, I'm going to go under. Because...
I hope you're right.
Now, what's that?
I hope you're right.
I want her to be in it, but the only reason why I don't think they're ready to explore how she's back from the unknown regions yet. She's still in the unknown regions. And then that means that Sabine would also be in it because she's with her. Then did they find Ezra? Did they not find Ezra? You open up a whole can of worms if you bring her on the show. Now,
and most importantly, to the flying space whales.
And
do they come back?
That's part of it too. But the overall question about will other characters show up?
That's another question.
There will be. I think there will be a lot of other characters from Clone Wars and Rebels that do show up for sure.
I'm not going to say a thing. I'm not going to say a thing. Yeah. All right. Kenneth Colton writes, the Force is at balance today, gentlemen. Congrats to both of you guys. I hope we still get to see that Old Republic-style prequel about the Jedi Sith. Here's the thing. Whether or not Benioff and Weiss are there, they know that's a good idea. And whether or not they're the ones to do it, clearly they're not going to be the ones to do it. I think within 3 to 4 years, whether it's on the big screen or the small screen, I think we're going to get something that takes place in the Old Republic era. Kristian?
I agree with you. I think that there'll be something that takes place in that era, whether or not it's the actual story that these guys are developing. I don't know. I think that goes back to what we were saying before, where the talent comes in and pitches what they want to do, because that also happened, if you listen to the rumors, with Del Toro, when he came in and pitched something that they were going to go with, and then he left and they didn't do anything with it. So I think that something will happen in the Old Republic. I would prefer a television series, but that's going to be my answer, I think, for everything at this point.
All right, next up here, Dill Alberts writes, is Palpatine able to come back because Luke is gone? I don't know. I don't think so. I think, Palpatine just even says in the trailer, long have I waited. Yeah. I think he's just been biding his time.
Yeah.
I don't know. But listen, I was the guy who thought that before we got into Infinity War, I was the guy who thought, I bet a part of Thanos' emergence now and starting to go after the stones now has something to do with Odin being gone.
Right.
I was wrong, but I kind of thought that at the time. So I'll go, maybe there's a little element of that. I don't know.
Maybe because he's still going to be around in some way or another in the Force, and he's stronger now than he was as Groucho Luke on an island. So I think I think you're right. I think he's been waiting. He's either going to use a vessel. He's trying. I always go back and equate it to Voldemort in that first movie when he uses Professor Quirrell in that.
Right.
I still feel something like that's going to happen where he's using somebody as a vessel to come back.
All right. Let's move on here. Hector Gina writes, just wanted to tell you both good luck, and we're all counting on you. Again, the airplane reference. I love it. You can never reference airplane enough for me. Baines John sends in a large super chat. Thank you, Baines, for supporting the show on that level, man. We appreciate that. Love the fact that you two are working together again. Love it. My question, do you think we'll get an explanation or some sort of clarity on the character of Snoke? Possible relation to Palpatine? I really want more Snoke. All right. I'm going to say something that everybody doesn't like that I believe. All right. We don't need to know anything else about Snoke. And my argument for that has always been when you go back to the original trilogy, and there was not going to be the prequels at the time. When you go back to the original trilogy, what did we know about Palpatine? We knew he was big, we knew he was bad, and we knew he was powerful. That's all we knew. That's all we needed to know. How did the Empire come to take over the galaxy? We didn't need to know. It wasn't important. We just needed to know they were in charge of the galaxy. And that's all we needed to know for those stories. For Snoke, I kind of felt the same way. We needed to know that he was big, he was bad, and he was powerful. And other than that, I don't care about anything else with Snoke because it's not germane to the rest of the narrative. I just don't care. And I don't think any of us should, but I know a lot of people do. Kristian, how would you answer that?
Sign me up as one of those people who does. Because
I knew it.
Well, yeah, because I think it's not as easy to say we didn't know about Palpatine before him and the Emperor, because those were the first times we've ever seen those movies. That lore wasn't there before. We didn't have the fan base and the overall extended knowledge that we have of Star Wars now, and the expectations that we have of Star Wars now, and all the characters that we knew, and things from Emperor was just another character in another movie at that point. When you just heard about him in episode 4, so you didn't pay any attention to him. You don't really see him until Return of the Jedi. I mean, he shows up for a brief image, and so the first time you really learn about him as a character is Return of the Jedi. That's the first time. That's when you get the most of Ian McDiarmid, when they didn't put him back into special editions. Obviously later on, we want to know more about him, and we learned even more about him in the Zahn novels through things that he did, and we wanted those little details. I don't think it's necessary to have a full-on scene about Snoke and to find out all these things. But I'd like to know what kind of Force user he was. I know inside of the lore that Palpatine was sniffing around the unknown regions. Is that how he got Snoke? Was Snoke looking as one of his generals? Was he projecting himself through Snoke for a little bit? Was that who he was coming back as? I think a little thing like that to understand if it connects to Palpatine would be good. Is it necessary? No, but I wouldn't mind it, and I think I would like to know a little bit more about how he got there and how he seduced Ben Solo.
Because to me, it seems like it's just a short step away from, we need to know, how did Maz Kanata get a small business loan to open her club?
No,
we gotta know how that happened.
That's different, though, because you have...
They just showed up and she had a club?
No.
How does that make
sense? That's different, because you're not relating it to now Palpatine, because Palpatine... How did this guy know so much about the Skywalkers? How did he know about all the Palpatine stuff? Because there was so much that he knew. And how was he sitting on the throne? How did he get in the position he was? Was that something that Palpatine was a part of? If it isn't, then it's a throwaway. Then it's a throwaway. He didn't know who. I don't know.
I'll concede that point. If it is germane to the story of Palpatine,
that's what I mean.
If it turns out that that's the case, then I will concede to that.
They don't have any relations, and it's silly.
You've got to address the connection. I completely agree with you on that.
I just think that it's going to relate because of the unknown regions, that we know that Palpatine was sniffing around the unknown regions for a while.
You think, just quick answer to that. Speaking of unknown regions, you ever think they'll bring Yuzhan Vong into this, talking about the expanded universe? The Yuzhan Vong, the alien race?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it would be interesting. They're kind of like, they would be like the Borg to Star Wars. Okay, interesting. All right, let's move on here. Next one up comes to us from Jason Espinoza, who writes 7 days. Well, 6 days, 13 hours, 45 minutes until Disney Plus. Once again, guys, mark it down. If you're on the East Coast, 6 a.m. East Coast time, 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. for those of us living in the Pacific's time zone. Looking forward to it. Jason also follows up and writes, according to the website, can't wait for The Mandalorian. Apparently, it's got a countdown clock on it right now. Again, counting down to 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it cannot get here fast enough. All right, Galaxy's Edge writes, will Kristian read this super chat? Well, he's seen it.
Good one, you silly fart.
Where are we at? Cobra writes, do you think the B2 Super Battle Droid is a flashback or someone using old Clone War tech? Well, of course, also in the scene with 3PO, we see a battle droid's.
That's the other battle. That's the Roger.
One. We saw a battle
droid,
a Clone War era battle droid, kind of strapped in the back. I don't know. Like, at this point, I think the Resistance is probably scrapping around for anything they can get their hands on. The Rebellion.
You're talking about Episode 9, though. I think he's talking about Mandalorian.
Oh, we're talking about Mandalorian.
He's talking about Mandalorian, right?
Oh, okay. I see.
Is he talking about Mandalorian when the battle, or is he talking about Episode 9?
I didn't.
Either way, let's address both of them. So Mandalorian, there's that shot of the droid in the back when the young child is.
I completely forgot about that.
So
that's why I instantly went to episode 9.
I think that's what he's talking about with the flashback. So I do think it's a flashback, and I think that because it's Filoni and Favreau, they're going to show us, because we saw it in Attack of the Clones, but we're going to see the Clone Wars in live action. I think that's exciting, even brief. It's brief, but to understand that that's where this character comes from, and to see those droids in the back like menacing, I do think it's a flashback.
All right, let's move on here. Sujith writes, best of luck for Dark Side, Light Side, John and Kristian. Love talking Star Wars. Hopefully The Mandalorian will be a big step towards expanding the Star Wars universe. Well, listen, Suthius, look, and Kristian, this is what I've been saying for years. I have been waiting for years. As much as I love The Force Awakens and Rogue One and stuff like that, I have been waiting for them to start expanding this universe. One of the great things about Star Wars is there are so many multitudes of systems and planets and worlds and characters. Tell us some of those stories. And it feels like Mandalorian is one of the first steps towards that. So I'm just looking forward to an age of expansion. I think if this works, it could lead to that. What do you think?
I think so also. I think this just sets the new medium to see how much the fans are enjoying it, to see how much I think that going back to what we said, where you have a character that could pop or go over in wrestling terms, and then feeling it out on social media the next day and see what the moments people are talking about and wondering what new fans are getting in there. I think The Mandalorian has a lot, it's got a lot of potential.
All right, next up here comes us from Jason Ashcroft, who writes, big fan of both you. I'm tired of people complaining about The Rise of Skywalker, and it's not even out yet. I missed the pre/post Force Awakens hype. Am I alone here? Well, I mean, a part of the reality, Jason, is that, look, what we just have to accept is we're living in a different sort of reality right now. We're living in a reality where there is a divided kind of fan base, and it's unfortunate to say, but there are actually now those who are hoping for the failure of The Rise of Skywalker. There just are. I mean, that's part of it. But I would also encourage you that shouldn't affect you. That shouldn't affect your level of anticipation or excitement in the least. Because other people are going to feel the way they feel, just like you feel the way you feel. But that shouldn't negatively affect you. I get it. It can be annoying, sure, if you're a fan of something, but I'd say just let it go. Pull a Frozen and let it go. I don't know, Kristian, how would you address that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that as a Star Wars fan, I understand that I miss it too. Where there was I don't think I'll ever recapture that feeling of Star Wars Celebration 2015 when everybody was excited to see the first kind of full trailer of the first new movie since Revenge of the Sith. The energy inside of that place and the love inside of that place is... I've been to a lot of conventions. I've never been to anything like that. Like, I couldn't control myself. There were a tear, actually.
That's
I
right.
had a Denzel Washington tear. It just happened. But we're not in that time anymore, like John said. But that shouldn't take away from how much you love it. You should just go in. It's disappointing when people don't love the things that you love, of course. But you love them because you love them, not because someone else does. So go and have some fun with it. It's going to do very well, and hopefully people are excited about it.
All right, next up here, Garrett Couch writes, between the new C-3PO, my favorite droid moment from the new Episode 9 trailer, and the Leia scenes, I might become dehydrated with all my man tears. How about you? I'll tell you what, the other day, Kristian, on my show, somebody brought up, if I had to say, like, 5 things I'm concerned about going into the Rise of Skywalker, one of the big things I'm concerned about is the use of Leia. Because, as is well established, the Leia stuff is all recycled material that they didn't use
from 7 and 8.
I don't even think 8. I think it was just 7.
I think they said they found some stuff from 8.
Oh, some stuff.
I might be wrong, but I thought so.
But either way, that means these are going to be scenes that were shot for other purposes.
Right.
And my one fear is that when they introduce the Leia scene portraying one thing, that the scene was shot to portray something else, it might feel jarring. And here's my other thing of that, is that J.J. Abrams loves Carrie Fisher so much that I don't think he's going to let that be a deterrent. I think he loves Carrie Fisher so much and he revered her so much that even if a shot might be a little bit detrimental to the movie, because it's Carrie, he'll just use it anyway. So I'm not saying that's what is going to happen. I'm just saying that's one of the things I'm a little bit worried about.
I was worried about it when they first said, I don't even say worried. I was like, how are they going to pull this off up top? But I liked what I've seen so far in the trailers. I think it's been done fairly well, and I think they're going to definitely use that scene that they never used with Maz Kanata and Leia that was supposed to be in Episode 7. I think that'll pop up in there, but I think they're going to do it right, and I think we're going to be pretty impressed by it, and I think because Star Wars has the luxury of having the amount of money that they have, that it's going to look kind of seamless. I think it's going to look pretty good because they know how important it is. They know how much respect is going to go into it, and they're not going to cheapen it by any means because of what you just said. They all love Carrie Fisher very much, and I think she's going to be the most emotional part of the entire movie, not just because of the obvious.
I think we're all going to be when she comes on screen for the first time, we're all going to be choked
but not
up.
just because of the obvious. I think Leia's going to, even when you listen to that thing where she says always, like, that's like, why is she saying that, by the way? Is that something to where she's?
Or is it even in the movie?
Is it even in the movie? Is she Force Ghost? Is there more stuff with the Force that she's learning, that she's teaching? I think her parts are actually going to turn out pretty good.
All right, let's move on here. The next one up comes to us from Hector Jeter, who writes, I just wanted to tell you both good luck, and we're all counting on you. Love it. Congrats to you two. Kristian, I wish you luck on your new chapter of your career. And I got to tell you, dude, I am so excited for the SEN network.
Thanks,
and what you're already doing over there. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm just thrilled you're doing it.
I appreciate it, and thank you also. It's funny because even though the initial jitters of like starting the first show and the little hiccups that happened, it was the first time in a long time that I was just kind of chilling, relaxing, having this conversation where I felt like, oh, this feels like 2012, 2011.
Feels like home again.
It's back to my channel that I started in the first place with Mark, and it was just looking over at Mark and having that conversation. Us just laughing and goofing around, and like, we want to talk about movie news, we can, and we want to goof about whatever it is. There's the ridiculous stuff that Brett and I and Kate talked about today. Please go and check it out if you've never seen it before. I'm really curious to what you guys think. It's not a full-on movie show. That you got John for that. I'm there just to, we talk movie news, but I'm there goofing around and having some comedy conversations with my friends.
All right, next up, Initial D writes into us, hey, John and Kristian, I could never reach you on live, so I'm excited you're here. You are awesome. Congrats and good luck. And John, you know how I feel about you. Oh, well, thank you so much for that, Initial. We really appreciate that. And thanks for being here and checking out the first episode of Dark Side, Light Side. And we appreciate you saying that, man. So thanks for the support, dude. All right. Andoni Ibarishi writes,
Close.
I'm sure I'm butchering that, writes, hello from Mexico City, huge fan of both of you. Over under 30% chances of the December 22 movie gets delayed. It's a great question. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say, yup. Kevin, look, a lot of people are instantly right now saying, and it's possible, a lot of people are already saying it's the Kevin Feige thing. An argument to be made for that is that even though they just announced the Benioff and Weiss departure, it actually happened a while ago. We're just finding out about it. And it could be possible that Kevin Feige slipped in and said, I got an idea for this date, so that's possible. I'm going to guess no, because Kevin Feige, if we've learned anything about him because of his tenure at Marvel, is that he don't rush anything. He's not going to just jump, I got to make a release date for something, so let's just whip something together. So I'm going to guess no, and I'm going to guess that they're going to push it, but I'm not going to fall over from shock if we find out it is the Feige thing. What do you think, Kristian?
Yeah, what's the question? Over? I'm going to go under.
30%.
I'm going to go under that's going to get pushed, but I don't disagree with anything that you just said. I think that it is possible. The only reason it's 3 years, I think, because they are having conversations. The Benioff and Weiss stuff had happened a long time ago, so they're doing prep for it. They've already announced the movie's coming out in 2022. Plus, it's Star Wars. This movie right now that's coming out in a month is going to make close to $1 billion. They're going to make anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion on the next Star Wars movie. To take that out of another year, I think is too dangerous for them. I don't think they're going to take it out.
All right, next up here, we've got Will Mack writes, chances of Snoke being mentioned in Mandalorian.
I'll go low on that, only because of where it lands in the timeline.
Yes, that's the tricky part, is the timeline
It's only
part.
5 years after Jedi, and I don't think Snoke starts popping around until like maybe 15 years after.
Yeah, it ain't
like
impossible.
That. Yeah,
I'll go 4%.
Yeah, I'm gonna go pretty low. I don't think that he shows up yet, and I think that's still same thing, unknown region stuff.
All right. Next one up is a fan of Peanuts writes, sup Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mr. Darth Harloff, putting the gang back together. Woo! What is y'all's favorite Star Wars moment or scene? Mine is the Battle of Yavin / the score of it, which is great. And I know it's stereotypical, but you and I have talked about this before, Kristian. I think that one of the reasons why the Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie is partially because of this one scene. It is the Vader confronting Luke in Return of the Jedi. In the Emperor's throne room, the music that's playing with it, the drama that's in it. Because look, if you want to look from a technical combat point of view, oh my God, almost any fight in the prequel is a better fight from that. But without narrative purpose, when you have real drama soaking in that moment and in that fight, it just elevates everything to it. That is my all-time favorite Star Wars scene. What about you, Kristian?
It's a good one. Not very different. But I'm going to The Empire Strikes Back, and it's when Luke first confronts Vader in Bespin when the scene lights up and he tries to freeze him, and he learns more and more about his son and has the all too easy moment. And I just remember watching that with my dad. But that whole thing is really leading in that entire Bespin fight. But I mean, just the approach of it to where this cocky kid who thinks that I can take this guy out, and he doesn't realize what he's in for at all. It's him really learning and becoming that Jedi master that he becomes in Jedi, but he's got to go through that first step of loss and everything too.
Impressive.
Most
impressive. All right. Next up comes to us from another Skywalker who sends in a really generous super chat and just writes, because it's Star Wars. Dude, thank you so much. We really appreciate you supporting the channel on that level, dude. That was really generous of you. So we thank you for that very much, dude. All right. TMO James writes, stay sweaty, my friends. What a great reference, and thank you so much for that, man. We will. Paco San Miguel writes, it's effing amazing to see you both talk Star Wars again. I am still hoping to see Luke take down Palps as a pinata. I mean, if Maul and Palps can come back from the dead, why can't Luke? Why can't he? Why can't there be a 5% chance that he's still alive?
Maul never came back from the dead.
Well, I mean...
Never came back from the dead. He never came back from the dead. It's like, it's tomato. It just Palpatine, though, if he does come back from the dead, we don't know for sure
that he actually came back, that he ever actually died.
Right. So, and you could also make
but we don't know for sure that Luke died either.
That's true.
Although it's most likely.
Most likely.
It is most likely.
Mostly dead.
Okay, Billy Crystal.
Yeah, but I don't think I don't know yet. I don't know how they're gonna play all of that. But yeah, Maul never officially died.
Yeah, technically speaking, that's true.
Darkseid kept him alive.
But from an audience perception point of view, if they can bring back Maul and they can bring back Palpatine, I mean, you could, if you want to create, he's got robot spider legs. If you want to make that up, you can make something else about Luke too.
Yeah, because here's the difference is that of what it looks like if JJ does that. If JJ brings back Luke, one of the biggest complaints that everyone had with that movie, a lot of people, the people who had complaints about it, like there were people like yourself and other people who loved that decision about Luke, going off and dying. There are a lot who didn't. If he does that, it looks like, don't worry about what Ryan did. That's not really. He can do that subtly, but if he does that, it was
part of the plan. You could.
He could, but it'd look pretty blatant.
Maybe, but you know what? I think it's one. I don't disagree.
Yeah,
but I think it's one of the things that most Star Wars fan would be pretty okay with and forgive pretty quick. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Next up is Peter Tennant writes, is Mandalorian a miniseries or is it a full season? Well, listen, we live in a world where something has 4 episodes. Castlevania had 4 episodes and it was considered a full season. It is a full season and they're going to do a season 2.
Yeah.
So look, I look, a lot of people think it's cool to have 10 episode seasons of things. I personally like 20, 22 episode season stuff.
Really?
I really do.
Right.
I think they've done it perfectly for many decades. But there's also, when you do shows, like I just started watching His Dark Materials this morning.
Oh, is it good?
It's quite good. It's quite good. Not the best thing ever, but it's
the Golden Compass stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But the cinematic quality that they make this thing at, you can't do that with 22 episodes.
That's what I was going to say. Back in the day,
Empire doesn't have big visual effects, but that was made with cinematic intentions.
That wasn't 22 episodes.
No, it wasn't. That's exactly
it's very hard to do that.
Yeah, when you're doing something on that sort of scale and scope and level,
too, man. I mean, Mandalorian's already over what $100 million or more for the entire series, and it's 8 episodes or whatever it might be, 7 episodes. But it's different. See, our understanding of limited series is also very different now too. Limited series for the Mandalorian could be 2 seasons. That could be limited series. Sometimes
hasn't it kind of become the new phrase for miniseries? Hasn't limited series become the new catchphrase for miniseries?
Because miniseries, I mean, a limited series could be it's 3 seasons. That was it. It was a limited series. So it's there's no clear-cut definition of what that is anymore. I think it's going to go around maybe 2 to 4 seasons tops.
All right, next up here, we got Darth Sidious who writes, hey, Kristian, do you like Star Wars, The Clone Wars? Because I know John doesn't.
The show?
I'm assuming he means the show.
The show's fantastic.
Because the show, it should be pointed out, the show and the movie were two very different things.
What's even more bizarre about that is the first thing that ever came out for the animation was the movie, but in chronological order, it is not the first thing you're supposed to watch.
Right.
Season 3, episode something is supposed to be the first. It's so weird the way they did that. Look that up if you haven't done it. The chronological way to watch the Clone Wars. The movie is not good. It's a really kind of cheesy episode of the entire series when you look at it as a whole. The series is phenomenal. The first 2 seasons are okay. Season 3 until season, was it 6? Or I think it's 6, the final season. So much depth. I got the Anakin Skywalker that I always wanted out of that. I understood where Obi-Wan called him, and a good friend, and a cunning warrior. I got all of that through the series. It's some of Dave Filoni's best work.
Absolutely hated the movie. Oh. Absolutely hated the movie. I don't even have the words to describe how much I hated the movie. Not a big fan of the show.
Well,
not a big fan of the show. It's one of those shows where...
You like Rebels better?
I did like Rebels better. Yeah. Not markedly, but like not night and day better. Because there are episodes and some mini storylines in Clone Wars that I actually did quite enjoy. And then there were a bunch I didn't.
Just a lot of throwaway episodes in the first 2 seasons especially, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't hate Clone Wars. It's just that I'm not that big of a fan of it, but I did prefer Rebels a little bit more. Also, done by Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
All right, next up here is Warrington Train Spotter 2778 writes, I hope everyone gives The Mandalorian a chance. I don't look, even amongst all the quote-unquote haters, even amongst them right now, I feel a lot of enthusiasm for Mandalorian. I feel like everybody is definitely going to give this a chance. A fan of Peanuts writes, is that a vision dream or Rey gone to the dark side? Look, the main, obviously talking about the sizzle they put out, and we see Rey in the dark cloak and the 2 thing. The 3 most prominent theories here are, in no particular order, Rey goes dark, it's a clone, it's a nightmare or a vision. Any one of the 3, I think the most likely is a nightmare or a nightmarish vision of some sorts, which will be unfortunate, because if that's the case, they shouldn't have put it in a sizzle reel and got everybody excited. I just don't see there being enough time to do a full story length of her turning dark.
No, I think it's Clone.
Clone is the next highest one to me.
I wouldn't even be surprised in that vision or that trailer that we saw with the hooded figure going after Rey, if that was the dark side Rey going after her and herself and her fighting herself. And as far as why and the understanding of who she is could come out of all that. Remember that thing we talked about years ago, where for a long time the opening of The Force Awakens was supposed to be Luke's floating hand.
Right. Yes.
And that was supposed to have a big part in the overall story, and it went away.
They did cover it a little bit in the comic books. They covered that
right,
a bit.
Kind of. But JJ is back. It was kind of his idea. And what if Palpatine was into all those science and all those dark side kind of magic? And I'd like to see what he was able to do with that hand and with Rey and who she is. I think that's where we're going to find out a lot about her.
Okay, next up here we have, who do we have? We've got QS Hicks writes, so I just learned that Lucas wanted David Lynch to direct Return of the Jedi. Could you imagine how cray that would have been?
I don't think that's true, though. He worked on Return of the Jedi.
Right, I'm not. Yeah,
he worked on it. He wasn't the established director yet. Is that? I don't think that's necessarily true. I might be wrong. But
I'm not. I'll at least say this. I'll at least say that I have not heard that, but that could have been a nightmare because George. He still maintained a lot of control over the films.
Yeah, Richard Marquand directed it.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure how well that would have worked out.
I don't think that it was supposed to happen. I think that what he was rumored to be approached for episode 7 or something along those lines, but then something happened. I don't remember what it was. Was it, or what am I thinking? Was it Lynch? They said Lynch.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Fincher. No, who worked on episode? Was it Fincher or Lynch? Maybe it was Fincher. Excuse me. You might be right, because I think Fincher was the one who worked on. I don't remember. One of those two.
Right. But either way, I've not heard of that. I have not heard that rumor before. So I mean, it's very well could be true. I've just not heard that. Okay. Next up comes to us from QS6 again, who writes, "How accurate do you think these episode 9 leaks are? I asked because I accidentally read some and I'm upset. Here's the thing: there are so many contradictory leaks out there right now, as it always is. 90% of the leaks are bullshit. 10% of them might actually be true." But, I will never address or talk about what the leaks are.
Yeah,
I mean, I've just learned my lesson.
I don't want to look at them.
Yeah. So there's, look, I believe there's a 10% chance that some of them are true. 90% chance that a lot of them are BS. So I just, yeah, that's about it. A fan of Peanuts writes, I really, really, really hope Luke, Anakin, Yoda, and all the other Jedi Force ghosts have a final fight against Palpatine. I hope Luke beats that ass. It raises an interesting question. I don't want us to go into depth because I think this is another
Force
big thing.
ghost fighting?
Well, Force ghost fighting, but also, and we'll get more into this in another episode, I'm sure, but, you know, Obi-Wan seemed to but allude to some unspoken rule. If you face Vader, I cannot interfere.
Right.
Right? That seemed to imply, within this world, and whatever the rules are that govern the ghosts, that he can't actually get involved in the physical matters of what's going on with the world. So I've heard a lot of people suggest that we're going to get... Now, I know Robert Meyer Burnett is dying to see at the end Force Ghost Obi-Wan, Force Ghost Yoda, Force Ghost Luke, all coming up behind Rey with their lightsabers, and all four of them charge, and they all take on... I get there's a geekgasm thing about that, but I am really curious how that implied rule that Obi-Wan set in the original trilogy, if that's just going to be discarded at this point.
I don't think it will be discarded. If anything, because it was discarded a little bit...
In The Last Jedi.
Yeah, when Yoda was able to put the tree on fire with the lightning.
Yeah, hit him in the head.
And hit him in the head, right. Yeah. So, I don't know. But, well, I mean, look, Obi-Wan sat on a log.
Yes, he did.
In Jedi also. So that's it's happened before. But as far as getting involved in the actual physical fight and swaying the way things are supposed to happen with the future, I think that's maybe the bigger rule. But I don't see that happening. I think that I think Luke's been training Rey for the last year, whatever it has. I think Yoda will show up, but I think that's about it. You might get an Anakin thing at the very end. Bye. But that's about it.
Hey, everybody, I'm Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, hey. And then that's it.
All right, let's see. Next up here comes to us from M. Erkenbrecher writes, theoretic question. Hello, meatbags. How would you two feel about HK-47's show, who easily is the best Old Republic character and the better version of K2SO? Now, is he the droid of freaking...
Well, that's where Meatbags comes from, by the way. Meatbags is what HK-47 says. That's like his main thing. And he's...
Oh, you know who I was thinking of? I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the droid... I'm thinking of the droid for Dr. Afra.
Oh, no.
I'm thinking Dr. Afra's droid.
He's the Knights of the Republic droid. And he's one of the best characters, hands down. I wouldn't want to say a full series on him, but I'd like to see him appear in the Old Republic. I do think he's absolutely... K2SO is great, and I love him, but he's a watered-down version of HK-47 for sure. And I would love to see HK-47 in an Old Republic series.
K2 Fast, K2 Furious. By the way, did you ever read the Dr. Afra comics?
A lot of them, but I fell off.
I love those droids.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They're hilarious.
That's why when C-3PO's eyes go red in the trailer, I thought of him. That's why I think that he might go into war mode in this one.
It'll be interesting to see. All right, let's see here. Next up is Vincent G991. Did Han kill himself for Kylo? I don't really hear many people talking about... I've heard that rumor come up and people talk about that. I never thought for a second that he did that. Like, some people have the theory that it was Han that turned on the lightsaber to kill himself for it. That was... They never remotely hinted that's what he was going there for.
No, I don't think so either.
He was trying to bring his son back to Leia.
He was. That's why that was that moment. That was the sweetest moment of the whole thing, where he looks upset, but he touches his face, and then he goes. That was he wouldn't, and that's not a Han move.
No, I agree. Okay, next one up. This one comes to us from Josh Razakoukas writes, just wanted to support. Happy to see you back together. Thank you so much, Josh. It is good to have you here, and thanks for supporting it along the way, my friend. All right, JB Bonifacio writes, which tragedy, if prevented, would have resulted in Anakin not becoming Vader? For me, it was the loss of Qui-Gon. What about y'all? Okay, it's a great question, JB. I think whatever transpired, Palpatine would have orchestrated it away. It just meant it would have taken a different path to getting there. So I don't know that any tragedy being averted would have stopped the eventual turning of Anakin.
I got one for you.
What's that?
Hey, about Naboo cruiser, stay off my planet. Let me do my thing. It doesn't crash. Palpatine never knows who he is. finds out who he is. Well, unless you believe the rumor that he was the one who created him in the first place.
It was alluded to in one of the comics that maybe that happened.
It was alluded to, and maybe he would have found him anyway. But it's like that space cruiser lands on the planet, and then Qui-Gon goes sniffing around, and he's flirting with Shmi.
Here, Master, Tatooine. F that, their huts are there.
Right.
Screw that.
Let's get out of here.
Let's go to Malastare or something.
Let's go somewhere else. But so yeah, that's the only tragedy.
That could have been one. That could have been one. All right. Next up, Alberto E writes, do you think we will see Force Ghost Qui-Gon in Episode 9? If I had to give it an over-under right now, I'd probably set the line at, I'm going to say 19%. 19% we see Qui-Gon.
I would go under the 19, but I'd go high over the 19 in the Obi-Wan series.
Oh.
I think in the Obi-Wan series, he probably shows up.
That's actually not a bad call. That's not a bad call.
Because we know in there's the book, I always forget the name of the book, with all the stories that Claudia Gray wrote in one of them, that Qui-Gon shows up to Obi-Wan right before Owen and Beru die in Episode 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up here, we go to Daryl C, who writes, I'm avoiding all trailers and speculation for Episode 9. Then you're in the wrong place, my friend. So I'm not watching, but you guys rock, and I'm excited for this show. I'll catch up next month. I appreciate that, Daryl, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Edwin Martinez writes, Mandalorian will be path for Star Wars to be fixed. Well, I mean, look, first of all, that's creating a faulty assumption, I think, that Star Wars is broken. I don't think Star Wars is broken. I think Star Wars has room for improvement. I don't think Star Wars is broken.
I think the fandom is chipped, is what I would say.
The fandom is chipped, yeah. I mean, maybe it's something that the fandom can start agreeing with each other again on something, maybe, but I mean, there is a divided fandom right now. But if you're talking about fandom, Edwin, I'll agree with that a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I think you're getting a lot of people that say like, I'm not watching the movies anymore. The TV's where is what real Star Wars is.
It's being run by the same people.
Kind of.
There's the irony of it all. McKinley Woodson writes, I have watched you all for years, never watched Star Wars. Do I watch prequels first or original release date? That is a question that you're going to get a different answer depending on the Star Wars fan you ask.
My daughter asked me, my oldest daughter asked me today, or 2 days ago, because she's seen a majority of the movies, and I started her with the original trilogy.
Right.
So my youngest now is 2, and she's not going to watch it for another couple of years, but so I said, yeah, we'll start her with Episode 4. So my oldest said, why wouldn't we start her with 1? And I said, because I want that look, and I want to be able to videotape her face when I'm like 1,000 years old, when she sees the reveal of Luke finding out that Vader's her dad. Like, if you watch 1, 2, 3, you know right away.
Right.
I mean, you can watch 1 and 2 and still not know, and then go 1 and 2 and then watch 4, 5, and then jump back 3 and then do 6. But it's I would say 4, 5, and 6 first.
Yeah, I go order of release.
Yeah.
Order of release is the one I'll always go with. So good question, man. All right, next up, Steve. What is it? Steve Caruson writes, series of Star Wars movies starring lone individual Jedi, followed up by a team-up movie called The Council. Why not? You are bringing back the filthy. Well, thank you so much for that, Stephen. I'm going to disagree. You don't need to do the Avengers in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You don't need to do the Avengers in Star Wars. I mean, and really, what I'd be afraid of is, did you see It Chapter 2?
Yes.
Okay. For those of you who haven't, I'm about to give a bit of a spoiler for It Chapter 2, okay? Here's what I'd be worried about with something like that. There is this unbearably god-awful long stretch of It Chapter 2 where the 5 adults split up to go on their each individual little mini-mission.
Right.
Each of them finds something they think is cool. Only then that cool thing starts to turn creepy. Then it becomes completely nightmarish. Then it shows up, Pennywise shows up, and then they escape. And then they do the exact same thing in that order with the next adult. And then they do the exact same thing with the next adult. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to do this for all of them, aren't they? And about 40 minutes of the movie is just completely gone and wasted. And I have a little bit of a fear of that with, number one, now the DC should do what they did for Joker for all the DC villains. I think, well, then it's just going to become a step and repeat. And I don't think we need individual stories about all these individual Jedis. The galaxy's bigger than that. So I would lean towards no myself. And I don't think we need an Avengers of the Star Wars universe. What do you think?
I agree. I just don't. I also don't want to be definitive and say absolutely not, because if they did one movie about some Jedi, let's say it's the Old Republic, right? And they set up this Jedi, and you're like, wow, but they set up like a few of these that actually could work together for the greater good, but The thing is, with like when you look at the Marvel and Avengers, there's a lot of material that they've had for years and years and years to set up Iron Man and Cap and be able to set that over 10 years to make that work. There's not all of that. I mean, there's stuff in the books, but it's not as well known as a lot of these comic books. So you can do it. I wouldn't be completely opposed if they did it the right way, but I don't think it's necessary.
All right. Next up here, we got Pocahon writes, first Super Chat, excited for The Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker. I'm excited for both. And to speak to something that Kristian was saying a little bit earlier about how right now I'm more excited for Mandalorian. I got to say I am too, but I also know that is not in small part due to the fact that Mandalorian's 1 week away.
Right.
Like it's right there in front of me. So I am losing my mind for it. And that's kind of standing in between me and The Rise of Skywalker right now. Will I be more excited for Rise of Skywalker once I get Mandalorian in the rearview mirror? Will I be as excited, maybe a little bit less excited? I'm not really sure yet, but we're all excited for both. All right, Daniel Hino Souza writes, I just can't agree on some of the complaints about Star Wars Episode 7. The same flaws can be found in any of the other movies, including the original trilogy. I like both series. Well, it's difficult, Daniel, to address that without knowing what the specific points are that you're referring to. But look, all I can say is that I love Star Wars Episode 7. It is my favorite Star Wars movie outside of the original trilogy. So you're gonna find me very much on the same page with you. But I can't address whether I agree that certain complaints are valid or not when I don't know what the complaints are. Do you have a guess of what he's talking about?
No, not. I mean, I think that there was a lot of stuff that was repeating from Episode 4 and
sure,
stuff that there's the comfortability and the and I think that people said it was just a rehash of a movie they'd seen. I didn't have. There were some. I mean, I still would have rather gotten rid of Starkiller Base. I thought Starkiller Base was silly. But there's a lot of movies that do repeat, rinse and repeat. But I think that I like 85% of, maybe even 90% of The Force Awakens. I really like it a lot. So, there's always going to be complaints in movies. There's people have complaints about Empire Strikes Back, which
sure,
if you don't,
which is fair. I mean, every movie's got something you can not love as much as you love the rest of the movie.
Right.
That's totally understandable. All right, QS Hicks writes, riddle me this, Campea and Harloff. First, Vader's chess piece is written in what language? It's some kind of Hebrew language, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Second, what does it say? I know. Oh, yeah, we've talked about this before.
I don't remember.
We specifically talked about
this. Yeah.
But I cannot remember off the top of my head. I knew at one point because we did talk about it, but I cannot remember. But it's some kind of Hebrew, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. That's written on his chess piece. Okay. Next up comes to us from Nate Piacentino, who writes, over under 40% that Kennedy is done after Rise of Skywalker. Look, in a vacuum right now, having not seen Mandalorian, having not seen The Rise of Skywalker, or being able to witness how well they do or do not go over with the audience and how successful they are, I will still take under 40%. But if you ask me again in a week and a half, after everybody hates Mandalorian, if that were to happen, and then a month and a half from now, after everybody hates The Rise of Skywalker, if that were to happen, well, that would change. If you ask me again in a week and a half, after everybody loves Mandalorian, and a month and a half after everybody loves Rise of Skywalker, that could change my thing. For now, I'll still go a little bit under 40%. That's where I'll sit on it for now. What about you?
You know what's so funny is that I'm over the 40%, but it's for the opposite reasons of what you're saying. I think that both of those movies will, the Mandalorian,
projects.
Both of those projects will do very well. And because of that, around 6 months to a year later, she steps away because her profile will go up that much more, because she'll only have one loss with Solo. She'll have all these projects that have just done really well. Another Star Wars movie will cross $1 billion. The Mandalorian helped launch Disney Plus, and then she can go and take whatever job she wants. Because if she keeps going on and keeps doing more projects, eventually she's going to hit another Solo. It's just process of elimination. Eventually she will, and then everybody's going to start complaining about her again, because it's always this business is a what have you done for me lately. And so if she has 2 more wins over her belt, she hits the shot and she walks off the court.
All right, I like it. All right, Mr. 47 writes, Vader was so committed to that action horror scene at the end of Rogue One, he turned off his breathing for stealth purposes. Great scene. Although the very first thing you hear...
He hears the breathing.
...is you hear the breathing.
Yeah.
Then maybe he holds his breath for a while as he starts wrecking shop. I mean,
it's also loud in there.
It is hard to put into words the first time that I saw Rogue One, because I think you were there the first time too.
Yeah.
When that scene happens, the amount, I'm not saying it's on the same level, but it was likened unto the portal scene in Endgame. Like when because you're in a Star Wars audience, and in the darkness of the mist, the Vader breathing, the lightsaber comes on, he starts destroying
You know
fools.
what's about to happen, yeah.
It was crazy.
And there were heavy rumors that was going to happen. Not that particular scene, but that he was going to show up one way or another,
right,
and how it was going to connect into Episode 4. So when it happened, you got to see him just wrecking shop. It was incredible.
All right, next up says, I can't believe we never got Boyega on the council. Well, that's Boyega's fault.
I know. He said it so many times that he wanted to do it.
It was through no lack of effort on your part.
No, he was a fan of movie talk. He was a big fan of movie talk. And he was a fan of council, and he said he wanted to do it. The guy was busy. So what are you going to do?
I mean, it's like, he was a little bit, you think we're busy. He's a little bit busy.
Yeah.
Okay, next up here comes to us from Orange Grove 55, who writes, any chance Palpatine isn't in the flesh in The Rise of Skywalker, but a spirit that possesses host bodies? Keep up the great work, fellas. Well, whenever you say, is there a chance? The answer is always yes.
Give it a percentage. Over under 40%.
I'll go under 40.
I'll go over.
But I would go over like 15 if you were to set the line at 15.
Yeah, 40's high.
There's an argument that the Rey we see with the red lightsabers is a clone body that Palpatine's actually in.
Right.
Right? I mean, so I still think 40's high, so I'm going to take under the 40, but you're going to take over on it.
I'm going to take over. I think that's the way. It goes back to that question that person asked before, why we didn't see him in the trailer. I think he has been taking over people's bodies, and maybe it was even Snoke that he took over, and he's been jumping back and forth. Maybe that's the case. Okay,
let's see. Where are we at here now? We are at a fan of Peanuts who writes.
There he is.
Empire Strikes Back had some relative drop-off from Star Wars The Last Jedi. Let me try this again. Empire Strikes Back had same relative drop-off from Star Wars as The Last Jedi did to The Force Awakens. 30 to 35% drop-off. Same-ish people need to chill. Yeah, look, I've said for a long time, and I remember I got some people mad at me when The Last Jedi was coming out, and I said, I don't think The Last Jedi is going to do I think it's going to do great, and it was the #1 film of the year, but I said I don't think it's going to do as well as The Force Awakens, because with The Force Awakens, you had this giant circus of Star Wars is back, and Han saying, Chewie, we're home, and there was something about the newness of that all that I didn't really, I mean, I knew it was possible it could have exceeded the first one, but I didn't think it would, so I never had any worry about that whatsoever. Did you, Kristian?
No, not really. I think you're right. I think that anytime, the question is how much of a drop-off will you get from this one, because people
from The Last Jedi to
that's
this
what people
one.
think. And the main thing that goes into all that, it's not the casual viewer, because the casual viewer doesn't give a crap about The Last Jedi. They think it's fine. It's repeat viewing. That's the main thing, is that repeat viewing, because people kept seeing Last Jedi, made $1 billion.
Yep.
Right? So will people be happy enough with this movie to go back and see it again and again, because it is the last of it? That's where you're going to see whether or not it's a huge drop-off or not.
By the way, I'm predicting, I do not believe some people saying that, look, there are still some people out there who think this is going to beat Endgame's record.
No way.
It's not.
No chance.
It's not going to get to $2 billion. It's not. I see it falling very squarely in that window. It's gonna make over $1 billion. It's gonna make under $2 billion. I understand that's still a big wide window, but that's where I'm gonna peg it at for now. So we'll see how that all comes about. All right, next one up. We only got a few minutes left here, guys. Penny Unwise writes, from a story perspective, The Last Jedi did not do Episode 9 any favors. All in one movie, we have to put a bow on Knights of Ren. Yeah, Knights of Ren. Emperor, Luke's fate, etc. This was planned? Okay. Well, I mean, I don't agree, because, look, if you look at going from Infinity War into Endgame, you could make the argument that there was a million things that they had to do. I would make the argument that there's not much you have to do with the Knights of Ren. You don't have to do anything.
You don't have to explore them at all.
Luke's fate, That's one conversation. One scene, one conversation could explain that. The Emperor is clearly the big thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's going to take a lot of it. But I honestly don't think there's any... look, this movie might be good, it might be terrible, but I don't see any particularly unique set of challenges that are facing it that wouldn't face another sequel from another franchise.
It's more of a rebuilding thing than anything else, and I've said this, and this is more of a direct sequel to Episode 7 than it is Episode 8, because these are the stories,
right.
These are the storylines that J.J. Abrams created. These are the characters that he created. These are the new ones anyway. That he wants to put. He's going to put a bow on those.
Right,
and he had a particular story that he wanted to tell, and whether or not you're on one side, you're on a side where you think that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson were on the same page and they liked each other's stuff, or you're on the other side where you think that they didn't get along and they have completely different visions. Either way, he's going to go and do a lot of things that he wanted to do to continue the story that he was telling in Episode 7. One of those things, whether or not you believe that it was planned or not, was the Emperor and the way they're going to set things up. But yeah, I think there are some bows that he's going to have to put on, none that are necessary though.
All right, let's see. Next up here, we go to a fan of Peanuts writes, I say Rise of Skywalker hits 1.5 to 1.7 billion. That's within the one. While I am saying a very wide berth of $1 billion to $2 billion, I actually think it's going to be a little lower. Now, if I had to pick a specific number, and I'm not committing to one specific number, but if I had to, I'd go 1.4. I think I would go 1.4, but I could change that later.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Let's see that could change drastically after we hear, some word of mouth about what's coming out after we have a chance to see it. All right, next up comes to us from another Skywalker who again sends in a really huge contribution. Thank you so much. Again, another Skywalker.
Who's that, Mark Cuban?
Mark Cuban writing in for us. And he writes, how cool would it be if the Mandalorian visited Harloff Minor? If you know, you know. And of course, Kristian is one of the rare individuals who is actually made a part of the Star Wars universe because Claudia Gray, who did such a great job with Lost Stars.
Yeah, Bloodline. Yeah.
And then followed that up with Bloodline. Actually wrote you into the Star Wars franchise, naming one of the systems referenced Harloff Minor.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
And just in case, because there are some people still ask, oh, wasn't that a coincidence? No, she actually did that purposely, putting Kristian in the Star Wars universe.
The short story of it is that I found Lost Stars, started talking about it a lot on council, and people were raving about the book after reading it, and then she was very thankful, and we talked, and I jokingly said, you know what, make me a character in your next book, and that just one quick funny little reference that I was kidding, and I was reading Bloodline and saw that there was an actual planet named, and I was floored. But I'm surprised that Lucasfilm hasn't blown it up yet.
All right. Let's see. Again, another Skywalker. Thanks so much for the support on that level, dude. We appreciate it very, very much. All right. Warrington Trainspotter, because we only got like 3 minutes left. Warrington Trainspotter writes, Daisy Ridley looks bored of Star Wars. According to what? From what?
I think interviews. I think maybe when it's certain references. I don't think she looks as enthusiastic as she did, but that's hard. She's also had this. I think she wants to do a lot more with her career,
and she has been doing more.
She's doing a lot more. So I that's why I also think I don't think that she's lost her love for it. I think she's over it right now. I don't think that's going to hurt her performance in Episode 9 at all. I think she's going to be incredible in the movie. But I don't think you see her as Rey or in Star Wars for a long time. But I do think maybe eventually you could see her again.
All right, next one up here comes to us from James Rye, who writes, do you think Kylo will be redeemed by the end of Rise of Skywalker? Also, not Star Wars related, but Andy Serkis is supposedly Commissioner Gordon. No, he's not. That is... I was just talking about him this morning.
Jeffrey Wright.
That's Jeffrey Wright. They were talking about him for Alfred. Love you guys so much. Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about the idea about whether he'll be redeemed. You think he will be.
I do.
I think he won't be, but I think there's a chance he will, although I think it's a completely the wrong thing to do. But all that kind of stuff. As far as Andy Serkis goes, dude, I love Andy Serkis.
He's one of my favorite actors.
Love Andy
Top
Serkis.
3.
He was so good in Black Panther.
There's nothing he's not good in.
I mean, I even loved him in 13 going on 30.
He's incredible, and he's a great director. He's a genuinely incredible human being. He is. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of talking to him.
I have, yeah.
He is just a genuine human being, and I root for him in everything he does, and I'm glad. I think that I'm glad the Batman got him if they got him.
Okay, last couple of questions, guys, and then the rest of them we're going to have to address on a companion video a little bit later. Next one comes to us from Austin Hernandez, who writes, what if Luke's lightsaber was the Sith totem for the Emperor? So when Ben and Rey break it, it revives him. Happy you guys are working together again. I think that's getting a little too inside baseball. And by the way, we're happy to be working together again too, Austin. I think that's getting a little bit too inside baseball. I don't see that being a very real possibility here. Kristian, do you?
No, I don't think so, but I think they were going to explain one way or another how she was able to put the lightsaber back together.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. All right, next up here, we got a fan of Peanuts writes, if you could have only one Star Wars character you could venture through the galaxy with and the only one to protect you, what character are you going to choose? Vader. Once you put in that one little caveat about only one can protect you.
Palpatine. I'm riding on riding on his jet.
He doesn't travel as much though. He doesn't get around as much.
But he say, hey, I'm going anywhere I want. I got your back. Can you put like all the Sith guards on me? I'm gonna go take a trip to Naboo. You know what I mean? It's
So either way, Vader, Palpatine. I think you're looking pretty good. All right, last couple ones here, guys.
Don't use the company credit card.
Where's your receipt?
Yeah.
James Rye writes, sorry, I meant Alfred. No problem. We understood what you meant by that. Fan of Peanuts writes, if you could only visit. Wait a second.
You did that one.
How did
he do that? That was good.
Did he accidentally? Oh, he put it in twice.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it was such a good question. You asked it twice. I'm still going to say Vader. All right. Last question of the day, guys. This comes from Urban Excursion, who writes, I love the Star Wars watch party you did at Collider before the release of The Force Awakens. Will you do another Star Wars saga watch along leading up to the rise of Skywalker?
It'd be hard to do.
It's hard to do.
I mean, I think it's. I don't know. It's hard to do as far as maybe watch alongs. I don't know if we do separate channels or whatever, but we just talked about how hard it is to just do one show, like to try to do a full on to watch all the saga movies would be tough.
It would be hard. Look, I never say never, but it is difficult. I mean, I have had a hard time doing those at all on my own, let alone trying to coordinate with that. So, not ruling anything out. Certainly can't promise anything though. All right, guys, listen. For everybody else in the chat, going from Laugh Warehouse, Alex M, Scoundrel Productions, Ross Orlando, unfortunately right now we got to wrap things up here, but do not worry. Your questions that you sent in, I am going to answer in a companion video here, so you're going to get those questions answered, and we will get around to the stuff that you guys asked. But for now, we got to sign off because Kristian's got a long drive ahead of himself, going all the way back out to the west end of LA. Kristian, this has been everything I wanted it to be and more. Thank you so much for being here. And listen, just one more time, I just give us another quick little rundown here about what people can find and expect over at SEN.
Yeah, so I mean, look, Mark Ellis and myself have made a career out of doing these fun kind of morning zoo shows and talking about pop culture and movies and all of that, and we built it up on Toad Hop and moved on over to AfterBuzz, did it on Collider, and now we're coming back home. We're back on our channel. It's the SEN network, and you can go to every morning from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. is our morning show, and then the big thing is the movie trivia schmodown. It is I'm very proud of it. It is my own little wrestling federation, but with movie trivia contestants. If you've never watched it before, I ask you to do it. It's a team tournament happening right now. It's a lot of fun. We do live events, and we're doing one December 7th. And on Sundays, if you get into the Schmodown, Brad Gilmore and Frank Janish, they go over and they talk about everything going on in the week of the Schmodown. It's like our sports center for Schmodown, and it's pretty great. So, and all of our shows are available on podcast form on the Schmodown Entertainment Network where podcasts are found.
And where can people just follow you online and follow you on social media?
Just at Kristian Harloff, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. And what about, and I know I've been getting a lot of questions about that. How about the audio for this show? Is that going on podcast for you?
I hadn't figured that out yet.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I haven't given it any thought.
Okay.
I actually don't put things up in audio. The only people I put audio podcasts up for are my Patreon supporters.
Oh, okay.
I don't actually put up a regular, so might. Might just put up a podcast, a separate podcast feed just for this one.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about
Yeah,
that.
we'll
Talk about it
awesome.
later.
Okay, cool.
So let's go good. So anyway, that's where you guys can follow Kristian. Make sure you go and make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel. Follow all the stuff that those guys got going on over there. And guys, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel here as well. Leave a comment below. Click the thumbs up button. It just helps the show and the channel a lot along the way as well. And you can follow me on all the different social medias simply at John Campea. So guys, listen, thanks a lot for being here. For Kristian, Harloff, myself, all you guys, sending in all the super chats, supporting us, who's doing it, and giving us great things to talk about. We appreciate that. So until next time, guys, bye-bye.